Evening. Welcome to the Ashland Board of Health. It is June 27th, and we are meeting tonight with a special guest, and we're kind of excited about that, but we wanted to do a little bit of business beforehand, so I just wanted to make an announcement that the meeting is being recorded by WACA-TV. It is also being recorded by Mark Oram. So there's the audio, video, and there's also the audio. And we may as well jump right into the agenda. The plan for this evening was to just start the meeting with one or two smaller agenda items, and then probably do a real quick 2 minutes, 3-minute recess, and then have our speaker for our presentation. And then we'll come back and do a little bit more business before we adjourn. So that's generally what we're anticipating tonight. And hopefully everything will run smoothly as we go along. So the first item is consideration of the minutes of June 20th. And I wanted to note that they were a little late getting out, so this may just be a look, and we may have to come back depending upon what the board members would like to do. They were late. They came out today. But the intention is to always try to keep up with our meetings at the next meeting, or meeting minutes at the next meeting. So I was wondering if anyone would like to add any comments. Should we be looking at these tonight, or what's your pleasure? I mean, if you want, we can also delay and do them after the presentation, which if someone wanted to, consider them a little closer, that would also be an option.
That's maybe an ideal situation rather than making the guests to wait. So may I suggest this be moved to be taken up after item number 4 on the agenda? Move that.
I think that's not a bad idea. Would that generally be an agreement with everyone? Should we take a vote on that, or is that something
Well,
that
I just
everyone
had a
would
couple
be?
questions, if I may, as
Sure.
I often do. Who developed these? Because I thought the plan was that KG and Laura were going to work together
No,
on these.
it was not the case.
What do you mean that wasn't the case?
No, it was
Refresh
not.
my memory.
My memory was that I was not planning to do it. And then she did it, and then she brought it up to the meeting. Doesn't matter who does it, because an audio recording, whether I do it or she does it. Doesn't make a difference.
I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong,
No.
and if I am, then I apologize, but I thought we agreed at the end of the meeting that, and
No.
I thought it was the suggestion of the chair that you were going to work with Laura.
She suggested it, but I don't have to work with her.
Okay. Who said that you don't have to work with her?
I don't, because the chair's suggestion is not an order on me. I'm sorry, please.
Okay.
Let's not debate on this issue. Let's quit.
Well, let me just clarify something before we get started tonight, if I may.
Mhm.
Is Laura taking the minutes tonight?
That's the call of the board, not mine.
Okay, I will
I
will
don't-
make the motion that going forward, Laura always takes our meeting minutes.
This was the same motion that we had the other night.
Well, I thought we did as well, so that's why I'm confused about this situation that we're in right now.
Oh, taking minutes is different from,
That did fail, though.
yeah, it failed before, so.
How did it fail?
It was
It's 2-2.
2-1-1.
Okay, so how did that fail? You had a quorum, so how did it fail?
It's my
We need
understanding
3.
we needed 3 votes.
W-
But
Your
the-
understanding referencing to what? We had a quorum, we had a majority vote, we had an abstention, and we had a vote in the negative. How isn't that a passing vote on a motion?
Well, we can take it under consideration. I don't have Robert's rules here, or the rules. My understanding is every board, it's the majority of the board, not the majority of those
We
that
had
are
a quorum,
present.
and we had a majority vote.
Could we take up this discussion after the guest speaker?
Yeah,
comes in,
that's a
please?
good idea, is to do it after the.
Okay.
the.
Can you move your microphones closer to you?
Oh, okay, sorry,
Sorry.
You know,
sorry. Sorry.
Sorry?
They were working fairly loud. Oh, now we got it, good.
Yeah.
I can hear it now. Thank you for the moving the mics. We'll take that up, I guess. We're a little early. I'm not sure if that's problematic. What do you think if we move right into the speaker first?
Well, I would, Madam Chair, but the reason why we got here 15 minutes early, because you told the board that we were going to be here to approve minutes. Now that we've ignored our agenda, we have quite a few people here that I believe that want to be heard, and citizens' participation is not on the agenda. So I would ask that the chair allow citizens' participation.
That probably will delay the speaker, and then we can have it.
Probably
Definitely
will.
helps, right? If you
It
can definitely
probably
have
will.
that one after the speakers.
But I wouldn't want to be on a board
Presentation.
that didn't want to hear from the people.
No, I think all along we have heard it, even though when it was not up there, even the last 4 minutes.
I'm sorry, I thought I
4
was
meet-
talking to the chair, not you.
Sorry
Okay.
for interjecting,
Thank
Oh,
you.
but
I would
that's
like
the
us to
truth.
talk to each other. I think that's good.
So, Madam Chair, I would ask that you allow the people to speak while we have time in the schedule.
Well, once again, we do have a speaker. I think it's
Okay.
very important to go forward with our speaker. And also, I just wanted to note, because, the question has come up, since we were blocked, actually, from having meetings between the election in May 16th, until June 6th. And between June 6th and today, what are we, about 2 weeks in, we've had, 5 meetings? And approximately a third to half of those have been citizens' participation. So I just want everyone to be aware that the previous, to that, we actually rarely actually had meetings, and we also didn't have that much citizens' participation. But
But we've had 5 meetings with no substantive discussion about public health, and tonight you're telling us
okay,
that
our
because...
speaker wishes to go forward.
No, I actually
Okay.
just have something to say.
Yes.
I think I'm on the agenda for 90 minutes, and I don't have a 90-minute presentation. I actually cut that back. So if I do believe there probably is time in the schedule to hear from people. Speaking as someone from a community coalition, it is important, I think, that if people have something to say, that they feel they have the ability to be heard. So just in the spirit of a coalition and of community,
Great.
I would be willing to allow that.
And I also want, if you, since
Wow,
you've got the
that's very
mic, since you got the mic, I think that the general understanding, oh, hi, Mary. The general understanding is that during your presentation, there potentially will be, and I was actually hoping that this crowd was interested in public health, because that's actually what's on the agenda. Up to this point, there's been a lot of administrative things, and I think going forward, I, for one, I hope, I know that there had been discussions at other meetings, that we really want to do focusing on public health. So,
I would make a motion to overrule the chair and allow the public to speak. So we have a
Was-
motion and a
Was that
second.
a decision made by you on not allowing the public?
I didn't make a decision.
Okay. So then
So-
how
Then
can,
we have the
how
time.
can
Why
you
don't we
over-
let the people speak?
how
Why
can
are we
you-
playing games with
how,
people's...
no, how
purpose-
can you overrule something that was not decided here?
Yeah, it was just decided. She's just not going to allow it was not going to allow it, so. I mean, if we were going to allow it, people would be speaking. And we have a motion and a
I do
second.
believe we really need to be respectful to the speaker. So,
If this.
Motion and a second. You have to call a vote, Madam Chair.
If the
You
speaker-
want to quote Robert's
that
Rules
was,
of
that was
Order.
a motion to overrule.
Yeah, I am
And there
overruling your
wasn't a
decision
motion
not
to
to
I'd
allow people to
actually
speak.
like to speak in public comment. So if you could just please allow public comment, I would really love to be able to speak.
You want public comment?
I would,
Are we
please.
going to?
Thank you.
Do you want to limit the time?
I-
It's your presentation.
I am hopeful that, and I'm thinking, maybe many people might have similar comments, so maybe, I don't know, but maybe not everybody wants to speak, maybe, I don't know. So I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody, so I don't want to put a time limit on it. I have about 30 slides, maybe that'll take, I don't know, probably an hour, if people would like to stay for my presentation, and to hear about youth substance use prevention and ask questions, that would be awesome. But as I said, in the spirit of community organizing and coalition building, I think that what we always say in prevention is everybody needs to feel heard. And so I actually would like to speak as a citizen, if that's possible as well. So it's up to you how long you allow it, but I think these are probably respectful people, and they will say what they have to say, and we can move on.
And the suggestion from me was to be respectful of you.
Yeah, thank you.
So if it's not a problem for you.
Not a problem, not a problem, thank you.
times
We
you have to say?
probably could go forward with that. My concern is that we do allow time for public health.
Yep, I understand.
So.
I agree.
I'm not sure how we will cut citizens'
it-
participation. There's a crowd here. I'm
Sure,
hoping that
we
they
should-
really want to talk about public health.
Definitely, we should hear, because you've always made that, even when it's not in the agenda, we have said that we need to do it. And if they want to be heard now, I think if there is time and if the speaker is willing to concede the time.
Okay, Amy. Thank
We
you,
should
Amy.
allow it. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, so we will allow it. There may be an opportunity to cut it off at some point, depending. There's a crowd here. So I guess we're going to open it up if everyone's just generally in agreement with citizens' participation.
Standing here. Can I go first? Does that mean I
Sure.
get to go first? So Amy Turncliffe, 21 Rossi Lane. So I guess at this portion of the meeting, I am speaking as a resident of Ashland for 13 years and the parent of 3 young children, 10, 8, and 5. I'm going to mix hats a little bit because I am a neuroscientist and prevention advocate, and I do believe that this board serves an extremely important role, particularly as a public health advocate myself. And so I agreed to do this presentation tonight in that spirit. So in my mind, I mean, let's call it what it is. We know there's been a lot of turmoil with the Board of Health, so we don't want to ignore that fact. So I decided to do this presentation tonight against the advice of some other people because my options here were to write off the Board of Health until you all move on or some of you move on. And to me, that's too sad and disappointing to do as a public health advocate, knowing how tremendously important the job that you all serve, and thank you for serving and for volunteering, but that job is so important that I wanted to do my part to hopefully help you all move past where you've been, because I believe Mr. Eskovitz, or Dr. Eskovitz, it was your wife who said
He's probably wrong.
What you need to do is find common ground and find your top priorities. And I actually
Yep,
believe
that's on our list.
that youth substance use prevention is common ground for you all. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think for those of you I've worked with over almost a decade, I believe that is a top priority. So that is why I agreed to do this presentation, because I believe that is the positive here and that is worth growing. So
Yep.
that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Hello, Michael.
Good evening, Michael Herbert, Town Manager. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And, you know, just to be clear, I want to say that I'm not speaking just for myself, but several people in the audience asked me to make a statement on their behalf. And so I just want to make that clear, that I'm not just speaking for myself. I have to say that, you know, after the last Board of Health meeting, I had a steady stream of people calling me, stopping by the office, saying, what are you going to do about the Board of Health? What are you going to do? And I had to take the time to explain to those people that there's very little that I can do as town manager over an independently elected board like the Board of Health. And then usually the discussion turns to, well, what are the Board of Selectmen going to do? And again, I have to explain that the Board of Selectmen have no control over the Board of Health. It's an independently elected board. I guess what I'm trying to say is that only the Board of Health can take responsibility for the Board of Health's actions. You are the only group that can turn around this ship. Now, I want to say last year, I offered this group to facilitate hiring a mediator to help you come to some kind of consensus, some kind of agreement as to something just to help move this board forward, get it away from the chaos that was happening. Right? So, you know, the majority of the board wanted to go forward with this.
I think all the board did.
Ultimately, the board, as a board, decided not to go forward with this because my understanding was that it wasn't all in. You all have to be willing to go through this part, to go through that process in order for it to be successful. So I'm here again to offer that assistance again this year. I'm not sure Metro West Mediation Services would be interested in participating again, but I would be willing to take some time to try to find a mediation service that would help and would help facilitate a mediation session with the Board of Health. I see this almost as a last-ditch effort. For this group to move forward, the board needs to do one of two things. You either need to put aside those real or perceived slights that you think have happened in the past and get rid of all the baggage from previous years, or you all need to resign. All 5 of you need to resign. That's the only way this board's going to move forward. I can tell you, I know all 5 of you. You have great individual talents. You have a great individual educational background. You bring a lot to the board. But sometimes individual successes don't necessarily translate into team successes. And I'm afraid that that's kind of the situation that we have here. So again, I want to offer that mediation service and hopefully help this board move forward. And last, I just finally have to address how the treatment of the staff here. I'm not necessarily sure what last week's Board of Health meeting was designed to do, but it certainly came across as petty and disrespectful to the staff. You know, the chair has asked me if I would ask Mark and Laura to sit out in the audience today, and I don't think that that's the right thing. You know, my stance here is that the staff are either part of the team or not. They're not part of the team. We've got a number of boards and committees that have staff support, and that staff support sits at the table, and they're part of the team. They feel like they're part of the team. They help as part of the team. And I think you should show your staff support, Mark and Laura, the same respect. And to that end, what I would like to ask is for the board to entertain a motion. I would ask you to entertain a motion to acknowledge that Mark and Laura should be sitting here at the table, and say that Mark and Laura should be sitting here at the table with you.
I'll make
So-
that motion.
I'll second it. Third.
Okay.
Does anyone want to comment on what Michael has said?
It's the way it should be.
I think Mr. I think it took great leadership, and I think it's a shining moment in the history of Ashland, what Mr. Herbert just said. And I agree with him 1,000%.
Absolutely.
We are responsible for our own actions. The fact that the taxpayers already paid for mediation because some members chose not to do it last year, and it was a public bidding process. The public's already paid for mediation. So even though I agree with him in spirit, I worry about results that I would hate to waste taxpayer dollars again. But I think it's very easy. We're all 5 adults at this table. We're all concerned about this town. Mr. Herbert's 100% right. We got to put our personal agendas aside. And if all we do is public health, then Ashland is a better place because of it. And that's what we have to do. But we have to do it with staff. And that's non-negotiable for me. Mr. Orum's 30 years of experience, it's a treasure in the Metro West area. Is he human? Sure. Does he make mistakes? Once in a blue moon he does. But he's a valuable asset. And Laura is one of the most professional people I've ever worked with in public service. And they're part of the team. And that's non-negotiable to me.
I agree with
Madam
you.
Chair?
Thank you.
Yes,
So you have a
would
motion and a
Madam
second.
Chair?
Would you like to comment, KG?
I do. 2 things. There has been no intent for sending Mark or Laura beyond this table out there.
We just asked him to sit in
Hang
the
on,
audience tonight.
hang on a second. The
Oh,
intent
no,
and
no.
intent and purpose is different. I was here yesterday when we were planning on this event, and I, as a teacher, I would prefer somebody who's lecturing us to be in front of us, and we could be sitting like students in front. That's how the arrangement is. And I do plan to sit out there. I believe Judy is also planning to sit in front when Amy is going to give a lecture. That's a better way. We thought it may be look odd if they two sit there. That's why she probably asked Michael to take care of that activity. But if that is not the intent, if they want to sit there, that's fine with me. I don't mind, but I will go and sit in front of it so that I will be a diligent student to work with. That's how I'm trained as a teacher. Going back to the mediation services, I think there has been one too many false information presented here. Going into mediation was voted by 3 members in the absence of the 2 others. Going out of the mediation was also voted by 3 members in the absence of the 2 members. There was no point at which I had asked that mediation not be done. I wanted a clarification from the town council to make sure that the discussion that I have with the mediator on an individual basis is protected or not protected. If it's an open meeting law issue, then I needed to know, and that resolution was not given to me in time. Thank you.
I have similar comments about mediation. There were 3 members without.
Excuse me, point of order.
Yes, ma'am?
We're supposed to be voting on the motion that was made.
We have a motion and a
You
second.
asked for public comment, actually.
There was public comment, and
Mediation is not
there
part
was
of the
not
public
actually,
comment.
I believe we should go forward with public comment. But to that public comment, I think we should have an opportunity to respond, because once again, there's representations that are just not true. And you know, when one says, you know, Mr. Herbert shakes his head, no, I have emails saying I was totally committed to mediation.
No, you weren't, Judy.
Now,
You're being
see, you
disingenuous.
say that,
You're
but it
being-
was voted by 3 members when
Because
Kate's
you
not.
conveniently chose not to show up.
Excuse me, I'm talking now.
I
allowed
understand
you-
that, but you're lying.
I allowed
You
you,
are
I
lying.
allowed you to talk, and this
I
is
expect better
exactly the
than that from
problem,
you. You're
John,
lying.
okay? Please don't jump on my words.
Then
you
don't
know?
lie.
Allow me an opportunity to finish my words. I allowed you to say your words.
Okay. May I take a minute?
And
to-
then-
to
then the-
let the public participation come back? We can come back to
Okay,
this
sure.
maybe later.
We'll let you.
We do have a
KG
motion and a
just
second.
recommended,
I understand,
KG
but that can be,
KG
the
recommended
voting
that
can
we
be
let the
deferred till
person
the
at the
public.
mic. But there are
It can be
things
if the
that-
board agrees, not if
I
KG
understand.
agrees.
I understand.
If the board
There are-
agrees,
there-
you're right. So we have a motion and a second.
I would like to take as the chair the next person in line to make comments, please.
Carl Hackinson, Chair of the Board of Selectmen. And before everyone forgets what he did say, I just want to reiterate that the Board of Selectmen collectively stands behind the town manager and the staff and his suggestions. Thank you.
Judy.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Steve Mitchell, 5 Newcastle Road, also serve on the Ashland Board of Selectmen. And I just want to, I think it's important that the entire board be aware of certain communications that the chair is making. And I'm referring to a communication that was made to certain members of the Board of Selectmen that essentially say, the subject reads, behavior of Mark Oram and John Featherston and Michael Herbert. And it states, those who harass me must stop, do something. And then it further states, make sure that Mark Oram does not attend tomorrow night's meeting.
Really?
So,
Oh,
now is
why
that a
has it been
decision? Is
exposed?
that a board decision? Is that a chair decision? So that's a little concerning, that,
Wow.
that this sort of communication is going on, and I think the board should be aware of it.
Thank you, Steve.
May I
Wow,
respond
how
to
do you guys
that?
respond to that?
Well, I would
Let's
like to,
spin that.
I would like to respond to it. That was part of a series of emails, and it goes to a discussion about the charter and how the town manager, the town staff works for the town manager. But the most important thing is after our meeting the other day, I happened to be collecting my papers, and it's fairly quiet in here. And John Featherston and Mark Orm were sitting in the office discussing how they were going to go forward with this type of what happened the other night. And as such, part of that email thread was to allow us, as a board, to do what some people refer to as mediation, what we started as a performance analysis, talking about process. And we are a public body. We can't just get together, you know, day in and day out, just without posting meetings. So we started a process, and that email was at the very end. It was sent to Rob Scheer, and it was sent to Carl Hackinson, specifically, just the 2 of them, after a series of emails. So once again, it's taken out of context, and what I heard these 2 individuals discussing after the last meeting did not appear that we were going to have a positive meeting going forward. And because we had invited guests, I did not want this type of activity there. And, you know, since I'm being, the light's shining on me, we were seriously behind on minutes. We were 7 months, and those minutes, without being approved, can potentially have a $1,000 fine for each of us for each of those minutes. And that was made very clear by the town attorney. We were in a critical point because had not been approved. I'm actually proud that the other night, 2 nights ago, that one of the 5, 6 meetings we've had in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we were able to accept all 13 meeting minutes, 9 from the previous 6 months and 4 from the past 2 weeks. I'm proud that we were able to do that. And the effort there was just to have 5 individuals sit facing each other to discuss those. Yet on tape, you can actually see Mr. Featherston say to suggest, while I'm speaking, suggest to Mark Oram and to Laura Clifford for them to leave the meeting. And then Mark suggested to Laura for her to leave the meeting. Yet, I understand that it's all over Facebook that I drove them out, when in fact, you can go back and listen to the tape, because there are words actually you can hear, the 3 of them, or 2 of them actually, discussing while we were trying to go forward with minutes. So I'm just using those 2 examples as things that create really problems here. Sure, would we love to have staff that's supportive and going to go forward with us? In the interim, I didn't want a big scene tonight because unfortunately we don't have 2 of our guests here. And we should have had out-of-town guests. This should have been completely about public health, which is where I personally would like to go forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You don't have to call me Madam Chair, it's fine.
Izzy Sanko, 9 Lakeview Terrace. I'm an Ashland resident, naturally. The other day, I was going up my driveway, and my next door neighbor stopped me, dead track. He had his 12-year-old daughter with him. I says, "How you doing?" "Oh, good. I had to get away from the Board of Health meeting." His daughter was watching it, and he wanted her to get up and take a walk with him. This town deserves so much better than that. So much better.
It does.
I got something here that I stopped by Town Hall today to get. It's the Ashland Town Oath of Office, and all of you's heard of it. I'm going to read it. I, your name, do solemnly swear to affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the performance of all duties incumbent on me as a member of, in your case, the Board of Health. And to the best of my abilities in understanding, agreeable, you understand that? Agreeable to the rules and regulations according to the bylaws of the town of Ashland and to the laws of the Commonwealth, so help you God. Now, I'm standing here as an Ashland resident, chairman of the Council of Aging. I have to put my minutes in every month. And let me tell you, when I first started having my meetings at the council, this is what I think of. I raised my hand to do my job, not argue the way that I see here, not argue. You all should be doing your job. Now, I come here really to ask for your recognition, really. I really do. I think it's going too far. I really think it's going too far. Okay, I'm gonna start like this. You know how hard it was for you to go out and get those signatures to get on the Board of Health? Remember how hard it was? let me tell you, right now in the town of Ashland, it'd be very easy for me to go out and get recognition for the Board of Health. It'd be very easy. That's the way I feel about it. I feel sad. I really feel sad for the town of Ashland. We're getting laughed on each and every day. But it hurts me when a kid can't sit down with his mother and father and watch a Board of Selectmen's meeting, watch a Board of Health meeting, or whatever meeting. That hurts me. Shouldn't happen. Because they're gonna be the leaders. They're gonna be probably sitting in your seat sooner or later. Yeah, that's the way I look at it, and I'd like to have you all resign. Really, there's so many people out here that just can't stand it anymore, and I'm one heavy one. I can't stand it. I don't know what you're gonna do about it. I hope you resign, and we'll get it over with, and we'll get a new board. A new board. There's people out there that would love to have your job, I'm sure. From the last meeting that the Board of Health candidates meeting, there were some good people there. There were some good people. Now, if you don't want to get along, just move aside. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. Just move aside. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Chris Daniele, 50 Corderville Road. I spoke to this board before and echoed those sentiments at the Board of Selectmen meeting the other night, so I won't repeat much of what I said, except I do want to emphasize that I still believe that the only way we can get back to a healthy board is by starting from scratch and having all of you resign your post. I want to first also thank the town manager, Michael Herbert, and the Board of Selectmen for their leadership and what Michael said today. Up until this afternoon, I felt it completely unnecessary to bring individuals into this mix, but there are two people I want to point out tonight. First, Mr. Eskovitz, Ron, if I may. Thank you. Thank you for your service and for stepping up when you did. And I apologize because I voted you into this, believing at that time that maybe a new presence, new blood, could change things. I honestly believe, from listening to you and to your wife speak the other night, that you are passionate about making this work. I don't know that it's possible in this collective group, and I think Michael said it best, that you all have very good and wonderful individual talents. Mr. Eskovitz, Ron, as a doctor, your training and your experience would bring incredible and immeasurable value to the issues of this board. So I appreciate your presence here, and I want you to know that out loud.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do respect you. I respect your presence on this board and your willingness, and I believe that you are here because you want to be here and you want to help. But based on the actions as I see them, as I've observed them, I only have my own eyes and my own ears to observe this board over the last year and a half, and in particular in the last few weeks. You may have the skills to contribute to this board, but I don't believe you're qualified to serve in public service based on your actions. Omitting citizens' participation completely, putting it 5th or 6th down, it's completely disrespectful of the people that elected you into the position you hold. It's just my opinion, and I apologize. It's not easy for me to say this, but it's how I feel, and I have to say it out loud. I hope that we can find an answer as a town, and I'm going to just stop there.
Good evening.
Hi.
Madam Chair, thanks for allowing me to speak. Good evening, Board. I've said a lot of things over the past couple of weeks, and everything is heartfelt, and to go along with what the other previous speakers have said, I concur very strongly with all the sentiments that have been made so far this evening. I'm not going to re-stir or rehash what was already said. I would just like to say that as a former chair and a current member of the Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry, I didn't identify myself. Joseph Mignani, 2 Harper Lane, Ashland, Mass. I apologize. I appreciate the fact, Madam Chair, that you are proud of the accomplishments that you've had over the past couple of weeks, and those were approving minutes of a meeting. There are much larger issues that need to be addressed other than improvement minutes of meetings, and I think those accomplishments, or those lack of accomplishments, should be addressed and should be looked at sooner than later. Looked at tonight's agenda, and I noticed that some of the things that you have on there is sanitation and chemical toilets. I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem to be a big issue for the town of Ashland. Why the hell is it on there? There are other issues with the Nyanza site that we're working on. The issues with water drain off, issues that are affecting the town that we're gonna be looking into. The culvert, all those issues, but yet I haven't heard any discussion from this board with respect to any of these matters that are critical to the town. Portable toilets, I don't know, that could be probably put on the back burner. And I concur with the sentiments from Town Manager, Mr. Herbert, and those that were ahead of me, that I think collectively, you all need to resign and start fresh. And I know it's painting a brush, painting everybody with the same brush, but unfortunately, sometimes that happens. And it's called, collateral damage. I appreciate, Ron, your effort coming forward. I'm sure it was an embarrassment for you at the last meeting with other things that were said by other people, especially people that you knew. I think everyone needs to do some serious soul searching here and to try to move forward. I thank Mr. Asenko for reading the oath of office, because I think people need to remember what that's all about. I really and truly do. And if you decide to resign, you know what? You stepped up and you did what you had to do to make the town better. And then we as a board and other people will do what we have to do to get the people in here to do the job that needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay. Mark the Sony, 409 Hawthorne Road. I was hoping somebody else would get up for me. I'm thanking citizens. I'm thanking 3 out of the 5 members. I've been part of this since day one. Wanted to be put in the seat as a common influence. That seat's still open and there's no calm. It's such a shame that it took almost 2 years from election, which I want to ask, when is the next town election date? That's the first question I have to the board, if they know. Ms. Chairman, you know.
Are we talking
Next
election, municipal
next
election? Because
town, no,
there's
town election.
Well, there's town meeting in the fall
Town
typically.
election.
You're talking about the annual meeting. It's in
Town
May.
election.
May.
Okay.
And Mark, if I could ask you, how many people ran this year?
How many write-ins came in ahead this year? Sorry, Ron, that's not against you.
I worked with one of them.
Yes. And where did they landed up?
A couple votes short after 36 hours of a campaign.
Okay. Now,
A totally new person in town, but came close.
I'm not done. The train takes a little time to get to the station for the train of thought. Another question. I know through the town website that there is another meeting of the Board of Health just before the Nyanza meeting, Thursday night coming. Can you explain the agenda that's on there? As a chairman, you're the one that sent it out.
I don't have it in front of me.
Can somebody
do you have a specific?
Can somebody on the
Do
board
you have a
who
specific question about it? Like, because I know about it generally speaking.
about who sets up the agenda usually?
There you go.
The board members offer suggestions.
Since you just put it off the side, I want you to read it as a citizen inquiry. There's a reason why I'm asking. And it says
I
it's
can
citizen-
handle it to you if you wanted to read it.
No, no. It's your agenda, your board, your chair. You read. Unless
Well,
you're too
what's-
embarrassed by how much
No,
you put
no.
out there.
Oh, so you want a general question, why
No,
so many items?
I want you to read what's on there.
No, I will answer your question if you want to know why so many items.
No, I want you to read that. I want you to read it.
Oh, I understand what
And
you
I
want.
want you to read why you put it on that same night as the Nyanza committee.
It's a
Because-
reasonable request.
Because we're meeting with the Nyanza, we're
how-
not joint,
What's the agendas?
excuse me?
What's the agenda? Did you put on that you just sent through the town clerk at 12:30 this afternoon? What's on it? I want to know.
Okay, there are a lot of items.
Well, read it.
May I answer your general question?
No, no, my inquiry is to ask you to read what you put out on that same night at 6:30. And the
6:30.
Nyanza's at 7. I want you to read those agendas.
May I then explain why
No,
this is?
no.
You don't
After
want
that-
me to explain, you just
I
want
want
me
you
to
just
read?
to read what is on there,
Well,
yes.
I will personally read, but I would like to qualify what's on here.
No qualifications, just read.
I'm sorry.
No,
If
no, no,
Without qualifications, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, that means you're not qualified for your seat. If you can't read your own agenda,
I can read it, but I'd
then
like to.
read it.
Okay, so these items are on this agenda because we are a public body and we can't just arbitrarily kind of say, call up each other on the phone.
No
and
explains,
say-
just read, it's
and-
English.
And say,
It's English,
so.
it's
so
English.
similar to tonight, like Mr. Herbert was not going to be able to be here about the
It's
landfill.
English, just read it, you don't need to explain it.
Mr. Herbert was not going to be here. No, 2 words or 3 words don't explain what's these
And
items.
you wonder why some
A
documents are
point of order,
doctored.
please.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if you've learned nothing tonight, the public is angry at this board. A reasonable request by an honorable citizen has been made. Please stop painting this board with your paintbrush, and please respect the citizen and read your agenda.
I will fully read the agenda. The items on this agenda are not meant for in-depth conversation.
The items
They are-
include
they are
town,
meant-
the
they are
town
meant for 2 or
citizens,
3 minutes.
the town
So I will-
citizens
I
are
will
involved.
I will read the agenda. So the call to order, then the review of June 20th and June 27th meeting minutes. Consideration, superficial, of the topic chemical/portable toilets. And yes, there is a portable toilet that is being planned at the bus area on, that we have had complaints concerning public urination since February. So this is a beginning step to address that. Consideration of the topic of underground storage tanks. We just had a concern that the board was not notified of underground storage tanks. We have no policy in place. It's a first step of should we have something.
Madam Chair, please.
The 5th item is consideration of revised food permit-related forms. That's something that KG has presented at many, many meetings for probably about the last 6 months. It's still hanging out there. That could be simply let's discuss it at our July 18th meeting. That's what that could be. These are all public health-related items. As old business, neighborhood complaints, Columbus Ave, Brook Street, Chestnut Street area. That was never put on the meeting minutes before I became chair, although those people stood up here and had complaints and concerns for 4 months, maybe more. It was February was the first time. Go and knock on their doors and talk to them, see where they're at. We should be responding to their needs. And are we going to get anywhere with it other than possibly figuring out where we may want to put it on an agenda, how we may want it to go forward in a very brief conversation? No. As old business, board administrative considerations and public health priorities. That's one of those meetings that wasn't taped. But yet Susan Roby came and said she thought it was a great meeting. It was very positive. People actually left very positive about it because what we did was a performance analysis. We are looking at methods, which is something, if someone wants to say mediation is a different approach, but it's getting to a similar place. But this is focusing on public health priorities and a discussion of objective things rather than personalities. So when should we do that? There was a really significant expression that we need to do that as a board. And the hope is that we could find a date when we all could participate in it. So to have that on our agenda for a discussion of our calendars is, I think, of a considerable thing. That is moving us forward.
Is there more?
Yes,
Okay.
July, so these are all meant to be, and we could cover as much as we can. If we can't cover all of them, we don't cover all of them. It gives us an opportunity, though. Review of the July calendar for consideration of scheduling a Board of Health meetings. I have had input from individuals that they have very, very limited availability. So going forward, we need to talk about when we can get together. And the last thing is a concurrent attendance of the Board of Health members at the Ashland-Nyanza Advisory Committee meeting, which does start at 7. We don't necessarily have to join them at 7, but their meeting is downstairs in room BC. How many of those meetings have you seen televised? My guess is none.
Who are you speaking to?
But I want to say that at most of those meetings, there have been at least 2 members of this Board of Health, and it's some of them 3 or 4 members. And because there is an opportunity there to have public comment, because that is a nice flowing meeting, we can't, as a board, participate if we're asked to participate with an opinion, because we don't have it posted. So when we talk about the Nyanza Study Committee, we may be there, or Advisory Committee, we may be there for another 2 hours, which I've been attending. I don't think I've missed one. I might have missed one, but since it was established, I've gone to all of those. And that is, this is a public health focused agenda. That's what this is, and it's the beginning of something. So you had a question.
Yes, and on that question, with the agenda for that night, is it or isn't it true that there's a member and staff on that Nyanza committee?
Excuse me?
You know that answer from this past Tuesday. Is there or isn't there a member and part of staff that's on that Nyanza committee?
You're asking my opinion, or would
I'm
someone
asking the
else?
chairman, because you should know your attendance.
Well, I know, but I'm wondering if anyone else wants to speak, because I've been
No,
speaking
just
quite a
you,
bit.
just you,
Okay, Mark.
just you.
Well, there's a couple things. One, I had heard that the Board of Selectmen actually wants a member of the Board of Health on that committee. Yet, that was not brought to our board, because at the time I was not setting the agenda. The individual who set that agenda volunteered himself, and without a discussion at any board meeting. This is not an accusation. You wanted to know, and that person was appointed as a public member. And then we also, Mr. Oram, I understood, because I think I heard him say this. I don't know where I heard it, but this is what I think I heard, is that the town manager, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the town manager had asked him to participate in that committee. So that's my understanding of who here participates in a formal way. But we can all participate informally.
I will, and I usually don't like doing this part to myself, but I will correct you. Tuesday, John Featherston is the member of that committee. He said he's going to be late with the mass, but Mark Orm is the staff member. Those are the 2 committees. And you couldn't even answer that.
I'm sorry, John Featherston was not appointed by this committee to that committee.
John, okay, wait a second. Can I talk to your member, John Featherston, for a
Well,
second? Through you, as an
look.
inquiry and nothing else, because it's a citizen's concern.
Once again, I'm not going to debate it. Someone go check that if they're concerned about the legitimacy of facts. Because, it's the small things, but if John says that there was a meeting where there was a vote and he was appointed, and I say there wasn't, that's something that you can check. And I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not asking you to spend your time to do that. But that is the kind of thing that we continually have here, is misrepresentation. And it's a fact from all the meetings I attended and all the minutes that I've ever read of all those meetings and all of the videos I've ever watched, that there was no appointment of John Featherston by this board on that committee.
Okay, now
That is a factual statement. The Board of Selectmen appointed me
Yes.
to their created committee.
Correct. And
So
then-
I serve with great honor that the Board of Selectmen thought enough of me
So we're in
to do.
so
And
we're
at
in
the
agreements.
at the time, I was the chair of the Board of Health, and this board, as it was constructed then, because Ron was not with us, was well aware of everything that went on. And if you want to go back and look at the tapes, I ask you to do so. So But to Mr. DeSoni's point, is the reason why the Board of Selectmen in their genius, and I'll use that word, created a diversity of the board is so one person could represent important factions of the town on this extremely important issue. What has happened, in my opinion, is other people have invited themselves and have slowed down the process. The EPA and the DEP are essential to our success of this. They don't have time to waste. They don't have time to play politics. They don't have time to be disrespected. I have correspondence from both EEP and DEP that they're worried about what's going on in the town, and it's putting the Nyanza project in deep jeopardy. So I'm deeply concerned about that. We have a great board, and we've got a talented board, and I would hate to be, once again, this board bring more shame to the town of Ashland with these types of shenanigans. And you were very aware, Madam Chair, that Mary and I are not available at 6:30 on Thursday, yet you went ahead and purposely scheduled that meeting, so it's sad.
To follow that up on that same path, I've been involved. I even have my own Facebook page that I answer study that I sent out. I got all sorts of information on. 3 or 4 years before you even meant to get on the board. And I continue that. And I understand what's going on. I'm involved, the Canes are more involved than probably myself. And I know the Kane family since my growing up days. This is coming up to what happened Tuesday night with the respect of minutes, which was misquoted because you didn't want to have it in. Not respecting citizens, not even hearing them. This means in 1 year and out the other. I'm going to be doing that as much as I can on camera to show how much non-listening people do not need to be involved. So, Mr. Chairman, KG we talked before in the first maybe year and a half when we got together at the meetings, regular meetings, and you asked me to kind of help you. I said, no, you fight your own fight. There you go.
Is there anyone else?
We do this for 5 minutes,
Recess? You want to?
so they can rearrange.
Well, we had a motion and a second on the table. Oh, we have another participant.
Citizens' participation. I've been on this board for approximately 30 years. We've done a lot of great things in that time. And I'm very sad to see what's happened because of different factions. We tried to get it all together, mediation, retreats, and we always had people pulling back because they were worried about their skin if someone had a complaint about them. And it's time that we either stop or I'm done.
That wasn't easy, so thank you.
Hi, my name's Kevin Toohey, live at 172 Oak Street. I just want to say, as a younger citizen of Ashland, to watch the Board of Health, health guidelines for the town, argue like children, it's very hard to watch. That's all I want to say, thank you.
Children don't even argue like that.
We have a motion and seconded on the floor.
I believe actually the motion was made by the town manager.
No.
I heard that correctly.
John
Would
John made it,
John,
and I
would you
seconded.
repeat your motion, please?
My motion was that going forward, we include staff in all of our meetings going forward at all times, non-negotiable, and that we have Laura take all of our minutes and be our administrative assistant to the board for all administrative and/or minutes for this board.
And I seconded.
Discussion? Discussion?
I really want to move forward because this room is speaking volumes tonight.
Well, we need to discuss
We're-
it.
we're- I'm trying to have a discussion.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed to be here tonight. I've served this town in many capacities and have always been proud. Today, I sit here very humbled and very embarrassed, and I can only control my own actions moving forward. My only actions moving forward are only going to be focused on public health. But I still haven't gotten an answer to my question, and I'm not trying to be difficult. But I am trying to look out in the best interest of Ashland. We've changed things on this board and the way we've done things on this board without board decisions. We've made staff feel threatened. We've heard that tonight from the human resource director of the town manager. It needs to stop tonight because Mr. Mignani, Izzy, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Hackinson, they've all said it. We should resign if we can't do it. And if we can't agree tonight that this stops right now, then I don't think we should do another thing going forward tonight. Because it can't stop. And what I mean, it has to stop. It has to stop. The emails that I don't know about, the meetings that Mary and I don't know about, you and I arguing, it has to stop tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to pretend it's going to stop tonight and then it comes back in another month, it can't. It can't be allowed. And I don't have time for it. Mary doesn't have time for it. Ron, you're a businessman. You don't have time for this. It needs to stop tonight. So I need to hear from everybody that it's going to stop tonight. And our word is our bond to the public of Ashland. So I pledge, moving forward, if somebody lies in public, I'm going to speak up. But I'm going to pledge, going forward, that only public health issues going forward are addressed
I
by this
agree.
board.
So pledged.
Agreed.
You don't agree, Madam Chair?
I agree.
But yet you don't pledge. Oh, Izzy read the oath of office tonight. That's a very binding statement. Your hesitation is concerning to me.
I've heard you and heard you and heard you, John, over the last 2 years.
Yet you don't listen.
So I pledge to only be focused on public health.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
We do have a motion and a second and continued discussion, or is it the will of the board to listen to the gentleman at the microphone?
Right. I think that we have let everybody else speak.
Okay, please speak.
John Rossi, 39 Lorraine Drive. So what John just said, it sounds great, but really I think we're at a point with the relationships on the board where you just can't be an effective board. Frankly, let's all, probably true, everybody?
Probably true.
So really, it's incumbent on either John or Judy or both to step aside so the board can function. Because you're both respected people and talented people, but your relationship's getting in the way of the work of the people. And that's just not acceptable. It just isn't. So I ask you to do what's best for the town of Ashland. Thank you.
So there was a motion on the floor, on the table, that we only have meetings with staff present? So is that a clarification of that? Is that,
Or when we have the meeting, they're present, that's what the intent, isn't it, John?
My intent is, and this is the question I've asked numerous times, and when did we change that policy? Mary's been on the board for 30 years. We've always had the health agent and the administrative assistant attend all of our meetings. So now when it comes up that, is that the intent? Well, 30 years of track record, and you can back that up, right, Mary? I'm not misspeaking at all, right?
Right, no,
So
you're right.
that's, you know, I think in a court of law, the judge would say, okay,
Let's-
that's the common practice. When did we change that
Can-
practice?
Can we move forward with the clarifications to make sure that we have, the
That
motion on the
staff
table is
attend
to
all
have
of
the
our
staff on the
meetings.
table, along with us on the table when we have a meeting. That's what the intent and purpose is, to make sure that we have a smooth running board with the staff. That's what we want.
I think
This-
maybe
I-
because I
Unless I didn't speak
I
right.
sense that you and I aren't on the same wavelength on this.
Okay.
My opinion, and I can only state my opinion, Mark's contributions to the meetings are essential as well. He knows what's going on day to day. He knows if there's a public urination problem in town that nobody's heard of until this evening. He's aware of, you know, problems with septic systems. He's aware if there's a public health crisis. He's aware. How we can exclude him and effectively do our job makes no sense to me, and I can only speak for me, my own opinion.
I think we need some clarification. So does that, so what are you, so what you were saying that on Thursday, if Laura and Mark could not be there, we could not meet?
I'm saying is that we should always try, the goal should always be, just once again, my opinion, that we always try to meet as an entire board. It's a 5-member board. If somebody has a vacation, or God forbid, a death in the family, or a work commitment, okay, those are gonna be one-offs.
That's
But
the
I-
motion, I'm gonna second it.
Okay.
I agree with you completely.
Those are one-offs. This board has consistently met every other Tuesday at 7 PM for 30 years. Now, we're meeting on Saturday mornings, Thursday nights, Monday afternoons, and we've done all those meetings, yet we've addressed nothing to do with public health. Why are we deviating from the schedule? And I'm not saying that we can't, and I'm never one of those guys, well, that's the way we've always done it, that's the way we have to do it. I'm not. But the board hasn't made that decision. One individual has made that decision. A chair runs a meeting and posts an agenda. They don't run the board. The board is responsible for its own actions. It feels, my feeling, and you don't always remember what happened, you don't always remember what was said, but you always remember how you feel, and I feel we're not working as a board. We can agree to disagree. We can have a lot of 3-2 votes and still do a lot of good things for the public of Ashland. But we have to do it as a board. It can't be one person making all the decisions.
I think what you're saying is great. There's nothing I disagree with. The thing is the practical application of that. And that is why on the agenda is discussion of our availability and our scheduling. Because if we can only meet the first and third Tuesday, that means July 18th is the only time that we could potentially move business forward.
We could talk about toilets on July 18th.
And, well, I think if you ask the people on Columbus Avenue, they would be very concerned right now that we didn't address this 2 months ago. And that is where we're concerned about the people of this community, because the people in this room may not be familiar with what's been brought to us and what their concerns are, but they've made it really loud and clear. They've stood there 4 or 5 meetings,
Yeah.
numerous people on this same topic.
And
And
Mr.
if
Orem and
we're-
I have knocked on people's doors, had meetings with, influential businesses in this town. I went to Eversource and got the gas line replaced myself. To sit there and say that we haven't addressed them, it's not factual. I went to Eversource and flat out got I told Mr. Herbert I did it afterwards, and he's like, how'd you get that done? I'm like, because I went over to Eversource and got it done. To sit there and say we haven't addressed them, it's not factual. It's just not, Judy. I understand that you really want to help people, and where I'm reaching out to you with an olive branch, I know in your heart you really want to help people. I do, and I want to help you do that, but we have to do it as 5, not 1 and 4 others.
So on the people with Columbus Avenue, we have to do it as 5 people. When do we do that as 5 people? I mean, you
Next
just said
Tuesday
that
night.
you went and,
Is the 4th of July, so we'll do it the following Tuesday after the 4th of July. Because the town bylaws say we can't meet on the 4th of July, which wouldn't be a responsible thing to do anyway. So it sounds like we're meeting July 11th, if my math is correct. And if it's that important
So-
of an issue, the board should direct staff, the health agent, if there is a urgent public need, the board should tell Mr. Oram, tomorrow morning, I want you over on Columbus Ave addressing this issue, because that's what we do. We can't always cry fire in a theater, and we're getting to be very well known for that.
It is the 11th, John.
It would be the 11th. But if this board tonight agrees that there is an issue on Columbus Ave that needs to be done, let's take a vote and ask Mr. Oram to do that tomorrow morning.
It's on our
And report
Tuesday
back.
agenda, or
No.
Thursday agenda.
Well, if it's so important,
And
why are we
people
gonna
may
wait till
think that-
Thursday when
People
we're
may
here
think
tonight?
that's funny, but we've been talking about this for 4 months, and if you do it without posting it, then it's not fair to all parties, because there's more than just the
But then it's
people
not
who
really an
live there.
emergency then.
Yet, we're moving it forward because it's on Thursday's agenda, and, you know,
I
Mark
took a
Dissoni was.
vacation day because somebody broke their thermometer in their house and the hazmat unit came out. That was an emergency. I got a call at, noon? Because somebody broke a thermometer in their house and the hazmat unit was dispatched. And I had to take a vacation day from work to do it. Those are emergencies. If we've been talking about this for 4 months and now all of a sudden it has to be on Thursday's agenda, we're either not being genuine or we've been totally lax, and I don't think that's the case.
Madam Chair, we are digressing from the existing pending motion that's there, so we.
Could you repeat the motion, please? And I don't mean facetious with that, but there were those all and always words that are disconcerting. It restricts us moving forward as a board if we have to restrict our meetings to the presence of staff members.
So
Wha-
May I suggest something to?
I don't understand.
John.
Yes, sir.
John, may I
Yes.
suggest something to
Sure.
make sure?
I'd love to have a
Add the
conversation.
word as best as we can, because that will give you
Yep.
room for other things. Otherwise, what happens when we have a joint meeting with the Nyanza, then you may have to ask Laura to come there and sit down, so what happens then?
I took
We are
an oath
restrict-
tonight.
I understand you took a
to-
vote, but
to-
I just
to
wanted
move
to
forward
suggest.
only on public health issues. I am not as you guys are all aware, I'm the only non-medical or doctor at this table. But what I do know is I know public process probably just as well as everybody else at this table. I don't feel comfortable making important decisions for the residents of Ashland without this man sitting next to me or sitting in the same room as I.
He's on
He
the-
knows the answers, and if he doesn't know what the answers are, he knows where to find them. As talented as all of us are at this table, I don't know. What do you do if, this is leaking, or that's doing this, or God forbid we have a mumps outbreak in town? He knows who to call. He knows who to talk to. I don't.
I understand that fact, but there have been meetings where we have joint meetings with the other boards where both of them were not there. One of them was the joint meeting that we had in February, I believe, on the 1st of February.
But I
with
think
the
that
Board
was
of
a
Sel-
one-off, KG.
I understand. That's why I'm saying that give room enough so that that can be facilitated rather than binding them to attend every meeting that we have. See, they should have the freedom to choose and come. And we cannot restrict them to come for a Nyanza meeting. Laura need not come there if she doesn't want to.
My fear is tonight
Okay, and then
that
we
you're-
attend,
you're
four
coming
of
off
us
your
attend
place.
there, that becomes an open meeting law violation, so in order to that, we have a joint meeting. So that's a problem. So if that's a situation where we don't impose that on them, but they choose to come, if that's allowed, that will maybe a better way to put the proposal if you want to amend it. If you don't want to amend it, I'm willing to go with it, but just make sure you have room for it.
I also question the same thing I questioned the other night, because our town charter gives direction to the town manager of all non-school staff. And how can we direct people who are not under our direction according to the town charter that we have in place? Our town charter is, it does not give us any control over personnel.
But Madam Chair, we've had a town charter, see that date right there? I'm pretty confident.
2009.
You see that date right there? I'm pretty confident since 1846, we've had some semblance of a town charter. It's really worked really good, but in your words, what I'm hearing is that in 2017, it no longer works.
2009.
2009, okay, so, but I've served with you for the last 2 years. In my opinion, it's worked pretty good the last 2 years. Mark's always made himself available. Laura's always made herself available. If there's the one-off where, you know, somebody's running in a track meet or has a graduation, of course they're not gonna be
And
there.
if, Madam Chair, I can just add, to maybe make it easier for the whole board to consider this vote, is that typically we have our schedule in place for that typical first and third Tuesday, and if there's, like this coming Thursday, I had a planned vacation day, but I'll take it off if need be. I didn't know about that meeting, I just heard about it, so unfortunately, but I think the next agenda item will solve that if the board can be considerate to everyone's schedule, and we can see if that first and third Tuesday works. If not, I can let the board know if I'm available. Of course I'll want to be available. I'm planning to take Thursday as a work day now that you're planning a meeting, so I can be available to this board. You have a lot of major items on that half-hour agenda that I feel I can help the board with. So, just so the board knows, I'm willing to work with you, even if it's a matter of coming back to work. So, I'm willing to work with your schedule as long as you're willing to work with our schedule. Thank you.
So that goes to KG's suggestion of having some flexibility. So I would request that the motion be modified to allow that flexibility.
If I may, Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Mitchell.
I just want to stress upon the board what it feels like to sit in this room right now and listen to this conversation. And it is excruciating.
Yeah.
It is embarrassing. It is the most ridiculous waste of your time, of my time, of everybody's time in this room. You started a meeting at 6:45. It's 8 o'clock
Yep.
right now, and you haven't done a damn thing.
Well, we've listened to
It's a very
we've
simple,
listened to
I have the
people.
microphone, it's a very, very simple process here. A motion was made to include staff in your meetings. End of story. It's very simple. The Board of Selectmen, the understanding is that our town manager and assistant town manager and our executive assistant attend our meetings whenever possible, and that intent is
Whenever
for now,
possible.
whenever possible. So,
Yep.
so modify your motion,
Yep.
and let's move on.
Yeah, I agree.
Decision.
That's the suggestion. So John, are you willing to take that suggestion?
But as I was just reminded, that's what I've said all along.
No, it was,
So.
okay. So whenever possible. So all in favor.
That's-
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Mary, any abstentions? Okay. So
Thank you,
I am
Board.
interested in moving on to the speaker. Is the speaker interested in moving on?
TV.
Do we, excuse me, KG, you had a comment? Excuse me.
My chair, I'd like to sit in the audience.
Yes, okay, so our format today was to actually use this drop-down screen. So there are a few reserved little tags there on the seats, don't ignore them if you so wish at this point. But some of the board members are invited to sit there while Amy does her presentation. It's on youth prevention, drug prevention specifically. It's very topical, very important to, I think, most of us, all of us here on the board. So I would like to recess for 2 minutes to allow her to set up, and then we will, may I hear a motion to recess?
I make a motion to recess for 2 minutes.
Anyone who wants to second that motion to recess for 2 minutes?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Don't leave. We are reconvening the Board of Health meeting for our guest speaker, and I want to welcome our guest. All of her time and efforts are so greatly appreciated by the town, and I thank her for joining us here today, this evening, and for all she's contributed. And I think I can speak for all of us on the Ashland Board of Health that in expressing our shared commitment to protecting our youth through effective drug use policies and practices, and that is the focus of what's the presentation is this evening. And so I would like to invite Ron to now introduce her. Thank you.
Hi, Amy, thanks for coming on behalf of the entire town to inform us, give us this nice presentation. I'm sure it's going to be beneficial and educational for everyone. Amy Turncliffe holds a PhD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and completed her postdoctoral training with Dr. Bertha Madras at Harvard Medical School. She provides scientific education in the area of substance use and mental health disorders. Amy's been a part of Ashland's Decisions Every Turn Coalition, working to prevent and reduce youth substance use since 2010. She now serves as the project director for the coalition and co-chair of the Metro West Substance Abuse Prevention Alliance. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Great to see. Nice to have a big audience. This is fantastic, so thanks for coming out. And thank you for the introduction. So I have about a half an hour. I have about 30 slides. I might move a little quickly. Please do come up and ask questions. You can either wait until the end or just come up, during the presentation. I got permission from Superintendent of Ashland Public Schools to share data that has not been publicly shared before, so it's a reveal for some of this data. And that's from the 2016 Ashland Adolescent Health Survey. I want to review who Ashland's Decisions at Every Turn Coalition is, if you're not aware of who we are, and then how we do our work, including both our local efforts and our regional efforts. We do a lot of collaborating, very collegial, so I think it's very timely to present on this topic. And then how can the Board of Health help to prevent youth substance use and abuse moving forward? And I will show evidence that the Board of Health has been very productive and active in this area historically, particularly around tobacco regulations. So thank you for that. So I just want to show some middle school data. So thankfully, middle school cigarette, alcohol, and marijuana use is very low. So, and it has declined over time. So this is in Ashland, and this is what we call current substance use. So it means they had to answer a question about their substance use in the past 30 days. So again, this is in Ashland, and this is Metro West as a region, and that's 25 towns in the Metro West Health Foundation catchment area. And this is alcohol. 3% of Ashland's 7th and 8th graders said that they had used alcohol in the past 30 days, and then 1% had said that they had used marijuana. So this is now, I'm going to switch to the Ashland High School data. And this is trend data, so it's data from 2006 to 2016. We now have 10 years of data collected every 2 years. I will start with the cigarette smoking. You can see the trends. So in 2006, about 17% of Ashland High School students said that they had used cigarettes in the past 30 days. And in 2016, about 4% said. So I think that's good progress, right? And then I'm going to go to marijuana next. So current marijuana use, there was an uptick in marijuana, which is not surprising given the climate around decriminalization. Medical marijuana was happening around that time. So up to 27% in 2010. And we've been working really hard given the current climate with policy. And we saw that in 2016, that was down to 18% of students reporting past 30-day use. So alcohol use has been a little more tricky. We are going to be prioritizing that moving forward. So in 2006, we saw 44% of students in grades 9 through 12 saying that they had used alcohol in the past 30 days. And that went down to 31% by 2010. And then we saw unfortunately a slight uptick, and hopefully we're back on a downward trend. So we won't know that until we do the survey again. Yeah, do you want the microphone?
I looked at the data there that you see the alcohol dipping down and the marijuana going up. Did they switch?
No. Nope, that's not a replacement that you're seeing there. And then this is just adding in what has happened across the region. So in Metro West, what happened with the numbers. So, you know, for alcohol here, you can see that we were lower than Metro West for a bit, and we've kind of gone to be a little bit higher than Metro West. So we are working on that, and we are confident that we will be able to have a positive effect there. And then marijuana, we were higher than the Metro West region, and we are now lower. So, and then tobacco, we are lower than the Metro West region. So I think that's the kind of data that we like to see, and that indicates that our efforts are having a positive effect on youth substance use. Judy, do you have a question?
I think I may know the answer, but could you define use?
Did you say use?
Use. Is it just once? Is it
this
quantity?
It means that they have used it at least once in the past 30 days. This data, that's what this data is saying, and which is considered current use, and it's past 30 days from when they took the survey. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. This is tobacco use, cigarette use, which I thought might be of particular interest to the Board of Health, since that's an area of regulation and policy for you. So what I'm showing here is cigarette and electronic cigarette use, and this is at, oops, sorry about that. Sorry, wrong way. Okay, in Ashland, in Metro West, in Massachusetts, and in the nation. So that's what this data is. It basically compares Ashland to the district, the regionally, state, and national levels. So you can see our lifetime smoking levels are similar to the Metro West region, but much lower than Massachusetts and the US. Our current smoking levels are similar to the Metro West region. This is ever smoked daily, again, similar to Metro West. Lifetime electronic cigarette use, so that's 28% of our high school students said that they had used an electronic cigarette. It's concerning. So I think this is something that we all will continue to look at. There's some information coming out that says that the flavors, particularly of electronic cigarettes, are alarming because of some of the effects to the lung. Yes?
Does electronic cigarettes, does that include vaping?
Yes. Well, they may consider it as they're reading the question to be, yes, include vaping. And then the other is current electronic cigarette use. So within the past 30 days, how many students had said they had used an electronic cigarette? And we're slightly higher than the Metro West average at 18%. So I think this is particularly interesting. This is access to cigarettes, and this is, again, from the 2016 data. So of students who identified as current cigarette smokers, they were asked where are they getting their cigarettes. So 25% said that they bought them in a store in the town where they live. Something I think that could come out of this meeting, a public health related action item, could be to take a look at that, I think. So, and then the another statistic here is 17% said that they bought them in a store in another town. So I think we could be collaborative and work with surrounding towns to just check in with them and see where their compliance rates are and things like that. This is access to electronic cigarettes. And so 52% said that they borrowed them from someone else. Not a lot that you can do about that. And so only 7% said that they bought them in a store in town, and 10% said they bought them in a store out of town. So with the opioid epidemic kind of top of mind related to substance use issues, I wanted to include some opioid-related data from the survey, so you could get a feel for where our students are at, our high school students. So lifetime prescription drug misuse, this may or may not be opioids, the way that it's listed on the survey. It might also be things like ADHD medications that they're misusing, stimulant medications. So this is, again, Ashland, Metro West. It would be Massachusetts and the nation. So we are similar in lifetime prescription drug misuse to the region, similar in current prescription drug misuse, which would be past 30-day use, similar in lifetime stimulant misuse, similar in lifetime opioid misuse, slightly lower prescribed an opioid by a healthcare provider, and then lifetime heroin use, similar to the region and the state and the nation. And I know that is particularly alarming considering the age of the students that we are talking about. So for anyone who doesn't know the brain science behind it, I'm just gonna really top level say that all drugs of abuse, so alcohol, tobacco, which would be really nicotine, and other drugs, including opioids, stimulants, they all increase brain dopamine in the reward pathway, which, and the pleasure center of the brain is considered right here, the nucleus accumbens, and so they all act on either directly or indirectly on that area of the brain. So for adolescents, the reward system is particularly active in the teen brain. They're seeking novel experiences, they're forming new connections, and what we say the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which kind of is that control center for decision making, is developing. That doesn't mean they are not capable of making good decisions, because they are, and we can expect them to make good decisions. But by teaching them how to do that, it's very important. And so, but the connections that are being made in the brain, the ones that are most repeated form the most efficient connections. So it's really important that we try to prevent youth substance use. Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm basically this part here, because years ago I kind of had a little bit of an action adventure with my health. I'm going to tell a story before I do the question. I want you to relate, hopefully, Amy, and your group, what could happen. If you, I'm just talking alcohol, but it could be anything that affects the brain. If you go overboard for years, the brain nervous stem cell shrinks, yes? Oh, no.
Are you asking me that
Yes.
question? There's actually a lot of complex things that happen in the brain when the brain is exposed to substances.
Okay, so Ed, alcohol is a drug. Alcohol can permanently damage brain cells if taken to excess. I'm going to say quickly what I went through, so we'll keep on going. On September 7th, 6:35 to 7:05 a.m. p.m., I was watching television. I was an active alcoholic back then. I tried reaching for a bottle of beer to watch TV. All of a sudden, I fell. Started shaking, having convulsions. Ended up at the old Midwest Hospital, which is now what it is now, with what could be fluid things coming on my hands and getting myself fluidized. I had a brain seizure. This is what could happen if nobody catches up.
Thank you for sharing your story, Mark. Since you talked about alcoholism, you know, what people are talking about is the lifespan of young white males is actually declining, partially related to the opioid epidemic, but actually partially related to liver failure associated with alcoholism. But it's not getting a lot of attention right now. So thank you for mentioning your story. So dependence on substances is highly correlated with early use. So this is why we really strive to prevent youth use of substances, because 40% of those who begin drinking at age 15 will develop an alcohol use disorder, compared to 7% if they begin drinking at 21. Some experts, many experts now consider substance use disorders a pediatric disease because it develops early when, during adolescence, when youth first start using substances. So, which brings me to our coalition, the Decisions at Every Turn Coalition. We are a group of dedicated volunteers. I'm going to call out Betsy here. Betsy is a very dedicated volunteer with the Decisions at Every Turn Coalition. And we are dedicated to creating a safe and healthy Ashland by working as a community to prevent, reduce, and solve the problems that can lead to youth substance use. In what we call the behavioral health continuum of care, prevention falls to the left on the continuum of care. This is behavioral health promotion and prevention before people need treatment and then support with recovery. So we really strive to enhance people's coping and resiliency and all of the skills that they need so that prevention is where we're putting our effort, and hopefully over time we'll have to put less effort into treatment and recovery, which are also extremely important, so I don't want to minimize that. But I just want to mention this quote. I recently was in Washington, D.C. at the Community Anti-Drug Conference of America, or Coalitions of America Conference, and a senior policy consultant said, we cannot treat our way out of the opioid epidemic. It cannot be overstated. I mean, we need to be putting effort into prevention if we're going to make headway long term. So our coalition is fortunate to apply for and receive a federal drug-free communities grant. That funding is through the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration and the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. So we receive $125,000 a year. We are just finishing up year 4, and then we'll have year 5, and we can reapply for an additional 5 years. And we have to put forth a 1-to-1 match. So we have to match $125,000 in cash or in-kind donations. Thank you to the Board of Selectmen because they contribute to our cash match through a BAA grant during both cycles, the fall and the spring cycles. But what we do is we mobilize community leaders to identify and respond to substance use issues that are unique to Ashland. And hopefully we are able to create change through the entire community. Here I just wanted to highlight that our coalition, as eligibility criteria for this grant, requires that we have signatures from 12 and representation from 12 sectors in the community. Now we partner with well beyond this list. But I want to publicly thank everybody that is on this list and who has signed on their support and has worked with us diligently in our youth substance use prevention efforts. Okay, and so all I want to say here is that investing in comprehensive, multi-strategy, long-term prevention approaches yields the greater return on investment, which is why DFC invests the way that they do. And we do have a process for this. It's called the Strategic Prevention Framework, and it's a cycle. We are constantly working, using this framework in our efforts. So the 2 goals of our federal drug-free communities grant, one is to increase community collaboration, and the second is to reduce youth substance use. And we use the collaborations and partnerships that we create in our efforts. This highlights kind of the spheres that we have of partnership and collaboration. There are so many, too many to name. It really is a joy to be a part of this work, and I really, really want to thank everybody who contributes. So we are required to choose multiple substances to focus on. So we have chosen tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, and prescription drug misuse. We are required to collect data on past 30-day substance use, which I just mentioned. We also are required to collect data on perception of risk or perception of harm, perception of parental disapproval, and perception of peer disapproval. And the reason for that is that, as it is well documented in the literature, that as youth perceive a low risk of harm, they are more likely to use it. If they perceive a low parental disapproval, which means if they think their parents think it's okay if they do it more. And if they perceive that their peers think it's okay, they do it more. So that is why we are required to collect these data. So this is just a summary, essentially, of the data that I showed you previously. We had a 5-year strategic plan that we presented in our grant application. This is how we are doing with the measurable outcomes that we said we would achieve. Yeah?
Quick question, prior slide. Was peer more likely to be a cause than the other three?
Actually, parents play the most important role in whether or not students or youth choose to use. And we do have data. I would love to come back and share that. We say there's a question about how important are your parents in your decision whether or not to use. And so and then how important are your peers in your decision whether or not to use. And many times more often students say that their parents are the most important. Another interesting, I'm just going to say it because it's really interesting, fact is that when they choose not to use, they choose not to use because they don't want to harm others. So I love that. Like, they don't want to hurt anybody else, right? I like that statistic. Anything else? Okay. So as I mentioned, in terms of our measurable outcomes, we have actually, assuming our data continues on a downward trend into 2018, because that's the year in which we set our outcomes for. We said we would reduce our tobacco 30-day use by 5% to fewer than 11% of age students by 2018. We've already met that goal. So assuming it continues downward, we will more than have achieved that. Marijuana, we're not quite there. We said fewer than 17%. Right now we're at 18%. And then prescription drug 30-day use, we have achieved that. I showed you data that said that they were at 4%. So I am hopeful that our numbers will continue on a downward trend, other than alcohol will continue to work diligently there. Yes?
How can you be certain of the honesty of the students who take the survey?
That's a really good question. We get it very often. The participation rate in this survey is about 90%, which is very good. And the Metro West Health Foundation pays for the survey. They do it across the 25 towns, as I mentioned. They contract with the Education Development Center, a very skilled research center. Well, they do a lot of things, but one of them is evaluation. And so what they do is they look for inconsistencies in the surveys, and they actually go through and they take out any survey that, they have an algorithm for it that looks like it was not done with fidelity. It wasn't done honestly. And they can't obviously go through every question, but they can look for patterns and inconsistencies in their responses and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, when there have been studies done on that actually, and the perception of youth is that their peers aren't answering it factually, but they say that they are. So that's kind of how the perception is. And this is just the trend graphical line graph of the data that I just showed you, which is essentially what I showed previously. Okay, so this is just some of our key 5-year accomplishments. There are so many, I'm not even going to go through them. Very pleased with this, and our DFC grant supports 2 staff, so I do want to give a shout out to them as well. So Kristen French is our community outreach coordinator. I know she's worked with the Board of Health, and she's had interns on the Board of Health that she's worked with, and I think she's going to be working with the Board of Health's current intern. And then we have a new coalition coordinator, and her name is Salmia. I do want to highlight that we have working groups we have an opioid prevention working group working very hard on our opioid prevention efforts. We have many other working groups. Betsy knows 2 of them well, which are our community programming working group and our social norms working group. We have been doing over the past several years a social norms campaign at the high school level, which highlights that most students are making good choices. Most students are not using substances. So we want to grow that. That was back to my grow the positive comment. That's where that comes from. So we are hopeful that all of our collective efforts, all of your collective efforts with us are having a positive effect. I did want to, if there's time, I did want to just show the opioid data. This is not youth, but this is unfortunately, this is deaths and Narcan uses. This is data that our opioid prevention working group is using. Let's see, here is the number of opioid-related overdose deaths by Metro West communities, and this was from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, 2012 to 2016. It was posted on May of 2017, and it comes from the Metro West Health Foundation website. So here's Ashland 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. So you can see that over 2014 to 2016, we had to 2015, we had an increase to 5, and then 2016, 4. In 2017, to date, we've had 1 death, and the Ashland Police Department has administered Narcan, I believe, 8 times this year. Yes. Yes, this is the police department. This is the police department. I don't have the fire department data here. I mean here, right here. Okay. And then this is Metro West opioid-related hospital visits by city in town. And this was in 2014. That's the most recent data that we have. And there were 76 opioid-related hospital visits from Ashland residents in 2014. Yeah. Well, if it was an opioid, then it would show up in this bucket. So my point on that section, I think I've made my point very clear, is that collaboration is key to the effort that we do. There are prevention specialists and experts that are trained in the strategic prevention framework and that utilize evidence-based prevention practices, whether they be programs or policy change and things like that, that we know work in prevention. So I just wanted to take a minute to mention that not only do we work in Ashland, we also are fortunate to work regionally with some tremendously talented and fantastic prevention experts. We work across the Metro West region with the Metro West Substance Abuse Prevention Alliance. With the Metro West Substance Abuse Prevention Alliance, we have done the Metro West Youth Teaming Together Summit, which was a summit that brought youth together. We had about 8 towns participate. The students broke up into groups, and they told us what they thought would work for prevention among them and their peers. So we are excited to move some of those projects forward. We did the Hidden in Plain Sight exhibit at the Natick Mall, was our first project together with them. That was in the prior year. We also work collaboratively. Ashland is part of 2 state-funded grants. The first is the Metro West Substance Abuse Prevention Collaborative, the SAPSI, which focuses on underage drinking. And the other is the Metro West Massachusetts Opioid Abuse Prevention Collaborative. They focus on harm reduction and also opioid abuse prevention, primary prevention. And then I did want to highlight that the Board of Health has been very proactive in tobacco regulations, that our health director and several Board of Health members attend both our coalition meetings when they can and also regional prevention meetings. In the future, I would love to see us all continue to collaborate on additional enforcement and policy. And then, meetings like this where you help us to share information with the community, I think is very helpful. I think that's all I had. Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Amy, thank you. Really, really good presentation. Thank you. So your understanding of the information relative to opioids, that seems to be the biggest kind of critical mass going on right now. Is it your understanding of the information relative to opioid use as a result of legitimate prescriptions for injury versus kind of moving up the substance food chain?
Yeah. So the question was, let me say it back to you and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Are the majority of people who are have become opioid dependent and maybe are now using heroin or fentanyl, either knowingly or unknowingly, did they originate with a legitimate pain prescription? That's your question. I am going to say that no. The majority came to opioid misuse not through a legitimate pain prescription. That has happened, and there is definitely misuse. But I think that there has also been a lot of diversion of opioid prescriptions because there was just so much overprescribing, right? There's just a lot out there, which increases accessibility, which is a key metric that we know lends itself to substance misuse. Did you want to add anything to that?
No,
Okay. I was asking Ed behind you if he wanted to add anything. But yes, that obviously has also been a concern. Do you want the microphone?
No, I'm going to come up.
Okay.
This is something near and dear from my previous life.
Are you dead?
I'm not dead, but my previous career as a police officer. Back in 1991, we started a youth diversion program and a drug program that lasted 11 years in the town. It progressed into a bigger and better thing. We went into other schools in town. And for you folks to take the torch, I think it's a great thing. It should have been continued, but it didn't. It takes a lot of work. And you have a committee that you have, and unfortunately, I was just one out of many that had to do it. So I'm greatly appreciative of the work that you and the coalition is doing. One of the questions that I had was that in looking at your survey results and trying to rack my mind about the survey we did over 20 years ago, the smoking doesn't seem, it's like almost dead even from what we had 20 years ago to what we have now. And one of the things that we questioned was whether or not, you talked about they didn't want to hurt other people, and that was one of the things that, if I'm with my friends, I'm not going to do something that they don't approve of. And so I see that trend is still there, so it's in the back of their mind. So if you continue promoting that, that's the way to do it, I think. Yeah. But thank you for all your efforts and those people that work behind the scenes. Thank you. It's only the betterment for the community as a whole. Yeah. These are the issues that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Do you want to microphone? No. Okay.
So I've heard that you can get Narcan at CVS without a prescription. Is that true? And the doctors are?
Yes, that is true. And it's true because Narcan is so effective. Oh, sorry. The question was, is it true that you can get Narcan at CVS without a prescription? And yes, you can walk into CVS and I believe you have to go to the pharmacy and say that you would like Narcan, and they are supposed to give it to you because it is a life-saving measure, right? If you are living with someone who has an opioid addiction, you know, or you're in a relationship or you have friends, and if you have Narcan, you could save their life. So it is a harm reduction and life-saving measure, yes.
So I've also heard, and I don't know if this is true at all, but they found it in a state park, where that sounds like people are just...
Did you say Narcan?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't heard that. That they have found Narcan in the state park. Do you mean like left there in case somebody needs it, or it was used there? Yeah. That's, I don't know. I have not heard that, but that is not surprising to me.
Amy, it's a timely question, so if I may, Mark Oram, Board of Health Agent Director. First of all, I'd like to recognize also Sergeant Ed Berman. He's been very helpful in all this. He has an excellent presentation, as yours was, on the use of Narcan as well as opioid abuse. The timely question was just today. Kristen French, who you mentioned earlier, as well as our new intern, Stephen Hines, and myself, we all sat down to discuss a certain project by the acronym of MOON. And it's actually was discussed about Narcan at our CVS and Rite Aid pharmacies. And the fact is that we are trying to promote people to understand that it's available. I'm glad you asked that question. It's available for people to go and not feel any stigma. And I'm glad to hear from the police as well that, you know, these are people that are needing help. They're not criminals. And we have to take the stigma away. As you know, we talk about that constantly. And our intent, and the Board of Health will meet the intern at our next meeting or within the next month, is to get back to the pharmacies with this notification that here's a process to follow, and hopefully they will work with allow that feeling that you can go in and feel free to ask for Narcan in a comfortable location within the pharmacy, not maybe in line, because the stigma still, unfortunately, until we continue to educate, will be there, but to allow people to realize if there's someone they know, someone in their family, we could possibly save their life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that's a really important point. The town has recently brought on staff. I believe her current title is Health and Human Services Director. Well, it was intake specialist, I think, for the time being. It may change to something else. But she can help, too. She can help people find services and supports that they might need, whether dealing with a mental health or substance use issue. Yes, Betsy?
I just want to add, follow up what Mark said about
to follow up on what Mark said about reducing the stigma and Narcan, access to Narcan. It's really important for people who are struggling with addiction to opioids that they have as many chances to get into recovery. And a lot of people who struggle with substance use disorder need many chances before they get the right set of resources to achieve long-term recovery. So we want to help them.
Yes. I have a couple of questions that would be timely, hopefully. When you took the surveys and you got all the answers, was there any places other with an explanation or comments were put down to?
No, there was no place, there were no open fields where students could just make comment. No.
Okay.
I know those are very interesting. They're hard to analyze because it's a lot of data to get through, but we will be putting out a parent survey soon, and we do have places where parents can do that.
And then I remember when this actually first, as Joe said, his time, there was DARE, and there was the first decision at every turn with Joe Muto, at the high school counselor. That was since the high school was being done. Mary, you might know from the nurses that he was a counselor in there and had hit the same sort of meetings.
Yeah, I know. I do know what you're talking about.
And this is an expansion.
Yes, that's right.
Basically.
That's correct. Yes, it is.
He was here for 3 years.
Now, the question is that hopefully an opinion from your group. The cannabis bylaw, what's your group's opinion on that, if you can say in the open?
She can.
Our coalition cannot take a position on that because we are federally funded, so we are prohibited from lobbying. As a personal resident, if you ask me later, I will give you my opinion. And many are laughing because they know my opinion as a personal resident.
So the State House cannot be still an open vote because all the opinions have not been there. Thank you.
The question you're asking goes to what I was talking about earlier about accessibility and attitudes and perceptions. Yes?
What role does mental health have in the program?
So, did you say what role does mental health? Did you say
Is there any initiatives regarding mental health within the program?
Yes. So I mentioned on the far left of the behavioral health continuum is behavioral health promotion. And what that, if you break that down, that is really getting at ensuring that people, either they're adults or youth, have the supports they need for positive social emotional learning, social emotional development, and mental health. Because really what it comes down to is if people have the skills, the coping skills, the resilience to deal with stress, anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues that might arise, either from trauma or something else, then they're less likely to use substances. We have a social, emotional, and mental health working group, our working groups, and they are going to be meeting, I think, here at the beginning of the school year. And we have a lot of school staff and administration that sit on that, among many other people from the community. I think Betsy sits on that too. And I think they're going to be developing, one of the community programs and thinking about how to better promote positive social, emotional, and mental health moving forward. I can say that the school is doing a lot of work in this area. They are working hard to develop a K through 12 health and wellness curriculum that includes social and emotional learning as an element of that. And they have tremendous, counseling staff, and they're really taking a good look and trying to do a lot of work in that area. Yes, Betsy's saying every year some of our community programs are focused on mental health or social, emotional, different aspects of it.
We don't want to cut off questions because this is really terrific. What you do is terrific, and I think you're commenting on the involvement of the school. There are so many people in this community who are gravitating to this. The schools are obviously doing a terrific job, the parent groups and actually just the volunteers, because we're involved with all these grants, and it's really great working with the other communities too. So I wanted to thank you, but I want to thank everyone else and make sure if there's anybody with the last couple of questions, they have an opportunity to ask those questions before we kind of call it. And because I just want to add one last thing before I basically sit down, is that please come back. We know that there's so much more here that we can share.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
When we spoke the first time, I was certainly completely uninformed. So I have a question regarding a potential process, because I think you've spoken about this in the past. If there is to be a ban in the town or a vote either way, how does that process work from your knowledge of other communities?
Yep.
It can't, I would assume it can't just be a unilateral position by 5 people on the board or selectmen.
Yeah.
So what is that process like?
So there are this is just factual information I am providing. The way that communities have already opted out, and there are at least 40, if not more, the way that they have done it is they have followed the language as it read in ballot question 4 to the letter, which means that they have held this is for towns that have a structure with a Board of Selectmen town meeting. They have held both a town meeting vote, so they put it on as a warrant article, and to have an opt-out. They have also done a ballot vote, so it had to be either a special election or at a ballot election. Moving forward, it's uncertain what the process will be, whether communities will have to stick to that process, because the Senate has put forward an omnibus bill that has come out of the Joint Committee on Marijuana Policy, and they kept that process intact, whereas the House bill moved it to say that Board of Selectmen could put that on the town meeting warrant, and then communities could vote on it there. So it's unclear moving forward what the process will be, but it will be one of those two processes.
Sounds like the entire community is involved in making that decision.
Yeah,
not just
correct.
It has to be decided by Friday.
I know, June 30th, that's the date.
Amy, if I could, one, we're lucky to have you and the asset and your organization, so we're very, very lucky to have you. As you're aware, I've been actively working on the state level and the federal level with this. You know, President Trump started his opiate task force and put Governor Baker on, and Governor Baker has invited me to join. And I go to all these meetings, and everybody there cares and is concerned and is worried. And I thought Betsy brought up the good point, is until we get past the stigma, I really fear that we're not going to get your next door neighbor, your best friend could be a drug addict, and that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
it's terrible, but it's okay. And until we get past that stigma. But what I get concerned is, you know, I go to these Rotary meetings all across the country, or I go down to DC and work on these task force or work with the governor, and I talk to all these opiate people. It's always access, because you could become a heroin addict tonight. You've never done a recreational drug in your life, and you could become a heroin addict tonight because you made one bad decision.
Yes, that is the exception.
It is the exception.
Rather
And that's what I wanted to say. It is the exception.
And there's data to show that.
Yes.
Typically, you know, it's not that people just pick up an opioid and start using an opioid. Typically, they have, and there's a lot of debate about, and I know the term gateway, and I'm not using it because there is a lot of debate about it. So typically people don't just do that. Yes, the accessibility is extremely, there are a couple things. The accessibility, and I was just with representatives from 3 DA offices from 3 counties today. We had a lot of discussion about this. The accessibility of prescription opioids is coming down. That's a good thing over the long term.
Right.
In the short term, that may push people towards heroin because they are less able to access the prescription opioids. So your point about which is extremely concerning in part because now we know that there's a lot of fentanyl that's making its way into heroin, which is contributing to either first responders having to use a lot of Narcan to revive people, or people dying because of the potency of the fentanyl. So it is absolutely critical. I think we've been talking, though I do focus on primary prevention, which is preventing first use or delaying first use. We are with our MOPC grant that I mentioned, the regional grant. They just held a harm reduction opioid forum. I think Judy was there for at least part of it. Mark, I think you were there.
Too, yes.
And talking about meeting people where they are, right? You can't, oftentimes people want to force people into treatment, and the people around them may want that to happen. And if if those individuals aren't ready, they need to be met where they are. A lot of harm reduction strategies, and harm reduction encompasses a lot of things, and some people are comfortable with some and not with others. But I think meeting people where they are at and asking them what they need. What do they need? Do they need a job, help finding a job? Do they need help finding a home? Do they, I think these are questions. I'm so proud of Ashland because I do believe we are a tremendously caring and welcoming community. And I think there are a lot of just citizens who would reach out and ask them, what do you need? How can I help you? And I think that that's something important to remember.
I think it's interesting that you and I kind of ended up, because that was my original point, is I go to a lot of these meetings, everybody's concerned, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
Where do we start? And you start just right there. And you also write a letter to your lawmakers, you write a letter to your kid's pediatrician, you write a letter to your doctor.
Yes.
You write a letter to your local Board of Health. And I'm not just talking Ashland, I'm talking globally,
Absolutely.
I'm talking national. Because you go to these meetings and everybody wants to do something.
Yep.
Yet, here we still are.
Yep.
And until we start doing that, we're always gonna be where we're at, unfortunately.
I think we are, and I don't know if Ed doesn't really want to say anything. Sorry, Ed. We are making progress. It's slow. And
But
so,
it is progress.
But I do think there's progress. There's obviously a lot more to do. This work can be exhausting, those of you who have done it, because it always feels like you're not doing enough. But
The hour is getting a little later.
Yes.
And we want you to come back. But I also want you to plug your website.
Yes.
Because I think that's a great place for people to connect. And also, from where I sit, I see that there are a lot of people volunteering, but hopefully you've stimulated some also extra interest.
Yeah.
So suggest to anyone watching if they want to either know more or maybe contribute in a more proactive way, how they can do that.
they can go to our website, www.ashlanddecisions.org. There, through that website, all of our email addresses are there, and I think there's even a button to contact our coalition, and that will go to our staff.
The meetings are flexible, and
Yeah.
we know that there's
everything's
at least
posted.
3 or 4 a month, so
Yeah.
different options.
No, thank you, and thank you so much
Yes.
for having me here. Really, I appreciate
Okay.
it, and I was happy to do it. So thank you.
If somebody called the Board of Health office.
We could hear chairs, I don't
and
know where the chairs
said, No, I don't know what to do, who do I, my child is addicted, who would you call?
So I think we have maybe 5 minutes of meeting. Feel free to kind of move about and take your change of scenery if that works for you best. Our meeting is posted till 9, so we have just 5 minutes to kind of finish up. I'm wondering what the pleasure of my fellow board members is. Obviously, we can wait for a number of these things. Is
Well,
there,
can we wait on the landfill? I mean, I think we need an update. Just from a citizen, I drive by there and I
Yep.
say, if I lived across the street from there,
Okay.
it would be a public health crisis because I would be going stark raving crazy by seeing it. Just, every day my heart would be pounding because there's no progress. So I think the public should get at least an update, and then that might only take a couple minutes, and you could probably do that.
I
right?
can do it in 1 minute.
Yeah.
If the chair wishes.
sure.
I can address the fact that the landfill, the reason the berm hadn't been finished was because last May, we discovered gas permeating from the landfill in towards the street area, and that's right where the berm is. So the town had to work with consultants and the DEP to determine a process to resolve that issue. That was done and finally decided by DEP, who are short-staffed. That's why things take a while, probably late winter. And then we being the town management and myself, started working towards setting up a contract and a request for proposal. A contract has been signed. We chose, DEP allowed us to use a remedy a little different from the original. That's another reason it took time. And now we're looking at putting in gas collection monitor wells. I think a good 19 or 20 of them. And once those are in, they will have vents that go under the berm and vent out the other side of it, so it'll keep down the site use issue, visual issue, and then the berm can be finished. The only other point I can make to the board is the fact that the actual solar panels, the interconnection for the electricity is under review with Eversource, with Amoresco, and town management. They truly understand that this board has voted to not allow any permeation into that landfill more than 12 inches. So they're looking at some other solutions, possibly either side of the landfill with abutting properties. And that's my hopefully quick 1 to 2 minute update.
Questions, comments? We just got some new materials today, which we could probably look at in the future unless someone has anything
What's a
specific
realistic
today.
timeline?
Realistic timeline, we're hoping with start time, if I may, mid-July, hopefully finalized by the end of summer. The company will be, the company name is EnviroTrack, with good references from working in New York. DEP, the equivalent of DEP in Massachusetts, gave them good references.
I'm not sure if the board members had a chance to, I got it around 4 o'clock, and I think it came to all of us, the EnviroTech track contract. It's pretty pricey. I don't know if anyone had really looked to, the price of this contract actually is what surprised me.
Most of the cost, just so you know, comes from the disposal of the trash that they'll be digging up when they put in these gas collection monitor wells.
So the
85,900, 185,900, that cost, majority of it is from the trash disposal. One contractor came in lower but couldn't provide information on trash disposal, and the other two were more closer to each other and on trash disposal. So unfortunately, we were hoping it'd come in less, but that's still better than if the DEP had required a trench versus these monitor collection wells. Then the issue would have been probably a $400,000 to $500,000 price tag. Not to say if it may have to come to that someday, but we're hoping it doesn't.
What sort of quantity of disposal that they're looking at, some approximate estimate?
The trash disposal, like I say, it was a good portion of the cost of the contracts.
The cost, I meant the quantity of material that you're talking about. Is that a
Well,
ton or
that
2 tons or
I can
a
check.
truckload or something like that?
It's 19 wells, probably, you know, if you look at the tonnage, I can look further in the contract, but
How
it's
deep
probably
these are?
in a ton to 2.
Roughly, how deep are these valves?
10 feet.
10 feet, and
Yeah.
diameter is about 4 or 5 inches?
That I don't have the specifics
Roughly.
on.
Roughly.
But we can go over the contract
Yeah.
at the next agenda
I'm just
if you
trying
like.
to calculate
Yeah.
and see whether.
But if I could, I just have 3 quick points. One, we're hoping that it's gonna be done at the end of summer, but 3 years ago, we hoped this thing was done, so faith and confidence is not there. 2, we're installing 10-foot deep wells, yet this board says you can't penetrate more than 12 inches, so that seems convoluted to me. And number 3, who's paying for this?
The town has to pay for it. It's our solution to the landfill itself. We're responsible for the landfill. The actual.
Is that coming out of our budget?
Yes.
We don't
Well, it's
have that
coming,
in our budget.
not personal, not the Board of Health budget,
Okay.
I'm sorry, town budget. The town meeting voted for it this past spring. The actual solution would have been the trench or the monitor wells. These are all at right near that sidewalk that exists there, which they're planning to improve as well. But this is a mandate from DEP as a solution to collect the gas. It's not it can be different from looking at finding another option for interconnection on electricity versus you're mandated to collect this gas and exhaust it.
So the reason for this excess gas coming out is not from the solar panels. Is that something
Our
else that is?
consultant has been asked that question. I may have brought it up when you weren't at a meeting, KG, but it's one of two things. It could have been the flooding behind the landfill at the time, last May 2016. It could be the fact that at the same time, we used to probe the soil with probes. I know I mentioned this at when one of our members was at one of the last meetings we had. But they required deeper wells to be put in to measure the gas. And in doing so, that's when we started seeing this penetration of gas getting out towards the street side. So it could be one of the two.
So it's our own remediation that we are doing by drilling deep down. So it's nothing to do with the 12 inches restrictions on the others.
It's still on the cap, though.
I understand.
Well,
but,
it's actually not,
we have
it's
to,
on
we
the
have to pull the
outside.
gas out underneath, then we have to do it
I
that way.
understand
There's no
that,
other
and
way.
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, and we've known, Mary and I have known for 2 decades that there's issues up at the landfill. And I don't know that we have documentable proof, but I think Mary's in our gut says that the gas problem has only gotten worse over the years. So my concern is that we'll have monitoring wells that will back that up. What's gonna happen if it is a and I'm hypothetically, and I'm hoping that it doesn't happen, but hypothetically, if it does continue, the gas does continue to go, what then?
Yeah. This was what DEP recommended. If this solution doesn't work, but they're recommending it to us, then they could connect each well to the whole string of them and try it to see if that connection of all the wells together would draw more, and we could put mechanical fans in like we do for some of our not radon vents, but our collection of TCE from Nyanza. If you know, so they gave us a couple other solutions if the initial work doesn't work. Ultimately, if that doesn't work, then a trench does need to go in.
But this is not significantly large quantity, but
It's at the edge of
fairly
the.
big lead.
Yeah,
It's a large quantity one could extract and use it, but
Yeah.
it's not usable enough.
Oh, the
with
gas,
quantity
yeah,
wise.
no, it's not. We've asked that question years ago too, because we already have gas emitting the U-shaped pipes right there
Venting
fenced
it
in.
out slowly. That's
Yeah, and we asked if we could collect that, and they said we don't have a big enough landfill for that use.
How long
So-
ago did we reshape that? It's gotta be 6-7 years ago.
Reshaping occurred about 4 years ago. It was finalized 4 years ago. We finalized it, and
So we finalized it and it's still leaking.
3 to 4 years ago. It's been going on for a while.
Right.
It started in the year 2000.
It also depends on the decay time of the material that exists, so it could decompose and.
Well,
it-
one thing that is factual, unfortunately, is there's a lot of Nyanza waste in that landfill. There's other waste. There used to be our town dump, but there's also Nyanza waste
I
in there too.
understand, but the Nyanza cap has the Nyanza waste, and we don't see this
That's not
kind of, this kind of
necessarily true.
excess gas coming out of there. So this must be other material that has been put in there which decomposes.
There's a variety.
Might be decomposing because there's Nyanza waste in there.
There's also what started this whole project was when we had an elevated level of vinyl chloride back in, I think it was 2000. And then that started the whole process. They looked at the shape of the cap, realized there was pools of water over it. Very common for any landfill to find itself moving their living features to a landfill when it's capped, and that is the digestion of all the waste. Turns into gas, turns into other chemicals that could be picked up in the water supply, groundwater, and that's why we had to reshape it. And they said typically most landfills are around a 30-year life capacity of a reshaping, and they have to reshape it again. So that's what we've been told by DEP and our consultants.
Madam Chair, if I can make a suggestion, because I'm deeply concerned. I mean, right before town meeting this year, we had a guy come in and say, oh, we need these poles, and I wasn't aware, and I was the chair at the time, I wasn't even aware that they were necessary. I think it would be responsible if we got all the stakeholders in the room and we kind of have this conversation. DEP, EPA, Amoresco, Eversource.
EPA probably won't be involved with our own landfill, but DEP definitely will be. Yeah,
I think we ought to get everybody in the same room and,
I apologize.
you know, have a 15, 20-minute conversation, because it feels like everybody's disjointed on this. And I don't want this board to be put in the position like we were a couple months ago. Hey, we need you to vote on this so it can go to town meeting. What?
I completely agree.
Things sometimes get turned over 3 or 4 times before we get them.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so you never really get the basis of where it started
So
from.
I'd rather get ahead of it than be
Exactly.
chasing it. Yeah.
I completely agree. I've gone to some of those planning board meetings where they've been discussing it, and it's always a surprise to hear. I also noticed that the contract, the monitoring contract, was signed to extend through the summer. Was that because the change in the company? Like, the other one
No, that-
expired the end of June, and then this is kind of an extension through September?
That's,
I think.
was, first to answer your question, when the company changed its name, we had that change happen at that time. The company just indicated we are now ATC honoring the ECS contract. So that happened back when they got bought out. The extension is to allow us to go out for bid. The procurement law changed this past November, as I was advised by our assistant town manager. And we're going out to bid, and we'll have some new bids in, hopefully by, mid-August. This extends this till September, and we're also considering a bid for oversight to the EnviroTrack work by ATC. ATC obviously doesn't have any learning curves on this landfill, so it is an advantage. We did go out for bid a couple of years ago and found ATC, which was ECS back then, our landfill consultant, very competitive. Again, it doesn't hurt to go back out to bid to see what we can find out there for a 3-year bid.
They've been good though, Mark.
Oh, yeah, they
been
have,
very
and
good.
we've done 1-year extensions before with them.
Yeah, they've done very well.
Or 3 months, and now we can't do 1 year, we can only do 3
So
months.
July 11th would probably be too aggressive, but
All this bid
July
information-
25th probably wouldn't be too aggressive to get everybody in the room.
Is all this bid information available to us?
The bidding, when it goes out, it goes on a state format. I can get the links for you, town management, I don't know if you're interested in bidding, but, the bid itself, it's a process they go through, and some of it has to be done per the letter of the law. We usually require our attorney and town management to handle that part.
Yeah, ethics don't permit me to bid.
So, our meeting was posted till 9, we're after 9, I'm pretty sure it was after 9. I have to remember the
Do you like a
posting time.
motion to adjourn?
Well.
Can I just
if
kind
we-
of
if we
firm
could
up
just
that July
kinda- If we could
25th?
just kind of finish this
That July
conversation,
25th?
but
Yeah.
do it a little, quicker.
Does that give you enough time to
Well,
get
it-
everybody,
it-
all the stakeholders in the
It
room?
kind of goes to availability things. Is either one of you going to be, I mean, we could actually meet after the Nyanza meeting or during that time period, but I think we really should pull out a calendar and really kind of like try to figure out dates
Well, let's
for
do it while we're here.
ourselves.
We're here now.
I got one too.
We're here now. I mean, I think July 25th gives us ample time to set up a stakeholders meeting. It gives us, essentially it gives us 28 days to set up a meeting.
What day of the week is that?
To Tuesday,
What day was it? 20?
25th.
July 25th.
When is
On
the
vacation,
Board of Selectmen having something?
19
Let me
June.
check.
That is
check
for the
that.
charter review that you're talking about, yeah.
And
Are we
then
meeting on the 11th?
stakeholders.
No, I'm away, I'm here.
Who are we considering for stakeholders? Because,
Who do you consider a stakeholder, Mark?
For what, the landfill?
Yes.
It would be DEP management, and if you want to talk to Amoresco
And Eversource.
to see where they're at.
And Eversource.
I don't know if Eversource will
They want their
show.
telephone poles, so I think
Yeah,
it's important.
they're going to be in the negotiating portion of this with Amoresco. They'll accept electricity the way they want it, which is, they won't accept it if they don't agree with the engineered plan.
Right, which
That's
I
what
think
happened.
that's important why
And
they're
that
there.
ties it up sometimes. Eversource might say, listen, we don't want this, we want it this way. And I'm sure it's all based on safety. So Amoresco has to go back to the drawing board. It's really between Amoresco and Eversource to finally find an agreement that works with this Board of Health's vote not to permeate more than 12 inches. That's what it comes down to in simple terms.
planning? That's a question.
I don't
Planning,
think
it's
so.
been more visual, but they have made, some decisions as well as it relates to the consistency of making sure there's no visual issues. The abutters were concerned about the visual. So they would be involved, though. They would be involved with any utility
Abutters?
pole.
Yeah, we should definitely alert
So we're
abutters.
looking at the 11th and the 25th?
Well, the 25th for the stakeholders meeting, yeah. I mean, because there is no bigger stakeholder in my mind than the abutters.
Right.
Yeah. So we could, you know,
I agree.
we could alert the abutters. But we should do that
Do we,
much sooner than later, so everybody has, you know, with vacation schedules and summer schedules.
do we have
How do we do that?
email addresses or anything for the abutters to know? Because
Just,
sometimes
just
we
like
put
you
it
do
in-
with conservation, when you have a public hearing, you
we
alert
don't,
the
but
abutters.
it doesn't hurt to take an extra effort if you can. That's
Oh,
what
I agree, I agree.
So you know, sometimes they don't see these things because they don't anticipate this coming and they're not looking for it, so.
No, they get a letters in
We'll
the
get,
mail.
we'll get a letter in the mail. You'll get a letter
Okay,
in the mail.
and
The
then,
direct abutters, we have their addresses and names based on past testing, direct abutters.
that's a positive move that we can do, at
And
least to help the abutters to
we
know that
can,
something
we can
is
put
coming.
something in the paper, and we
Yeah.
can put something up on WACA, we
Yeah.
can, you know.
What are the numbers we talking with the direct abutters? I remember being at a meeting once.
We
when there
have
was a-
about, I
Thirty.
think,
Just
well, not
approximate, but-
direct abutters, you have the two on the side. One is a vacant land, Big Indian Reservation, the other one's 94 House Street. And then you got some on Indian Brook on the back side. You don't see them as often, but they have been at meetings before. And you also have the houses across House Street, and there's about 6 of those. So I would say at least a minimum of 8 to 10 direct abutters, you know, give or take. to
Yeah, but I
the
think if you
actual-
live on that street, you're in a butter. If you live on that loop
Yeah,
there, you're in a
it's a
butter.
matter where you stop it and where you, and, you know.
Yeah, that was my, that was
yeah,
kind of my
You don't wanna stop
question
it where
is
someone
how
else said, how
far.
come I didn't know? You know, so it's difficult unless you wanna use a strict abutter notification 300 feet from the end of the land, you know, you
You
can
live
do
on
it
House
like
Street,
that.
you're in
where-
a butter in my mind.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think before I was on the board, I came to a meeting and there were abutters there. Is that probably the last time we've actually done
Those-
something with a
yeah.
bigger crowd? It was probably 2
Yeah.
years ago?
How
Or
did-
have we done anything
Yeah.
since then?
March 15th.
I was gonna say, you don't know the
We
date.
did
yeah.
something.
I
There's a
think,
lot of abutters, including Charlie, walked up there and then he talked to him.
Right.
yeah, that's how it
When
happened.
Charlie was on the board before.
Yeah, but he walked
Before
up
he
there and
resigned,
talked.
yeah.
March 15th, 2 years,
Mhm.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, so I would
I-
lean
And that
toward
goes
more.
back to my original point, is that project was supposed to be done 2 years ago, we were talking, and it was supposed to be done, and now we're saying, we hope it's done the end of summer.
See,
We gotta get this thing done,
Right.
Yeah,
either
and
done
that-
or
That's just the
worked
gas,
out.
and I want to correct what I said, that end of summer date was only for the gas monitor collection wells. Then the other work will start after that, because you don't want to do, it's like putting a pipe in a road right after it was paved. You don't want to do the pavement until the end. And they actually want to do the sidewalk over, so I'd invite DPW, their engineers looking, Regita.
But to hear the abutters, you're probably gonna have to make that just a single item meeting, because I'm sure the abutters are gonna
Yeah,
have a lot to
wrap it up.
discuss.
I have another question that I thought I
DPW.
should
Yep.
raise this issue to both Mary and John, maybe Mark. Is the Nyanza cap still under our control, or we don't have the control of it?
Nyanza Cap is under the EPA.
Never been
It's
under
their
their
full
So
control.
we don't, so if
They have a consent decree, and they can only follow the law of the consent decree. And they have to go through EPA, whoever, the owner is the same owner that's had it for years. And as the board has heard, there is a potential for solar panels that the owner wishes to have put on the cap. It will have to follow the letter of the law, as they call it, the consent decree, if they so wish.
So we have no say over it.
Citizens Energy,
We don't want any say over it. It's a federal Superfund site. We would bankrupt the town in seconds if we took control of it.
there is.
It's a federal
there is-
Superfund site.
It is-
Senator
it is
Kennedy
on
set
the
it up
agenda.
specifically
Yeah.
that way. yeah.
On Thursday.
There could be some wetland issues that conservation will handle. There could be some utility connections that planning board will handle because of utility poles. So other boards can get involved on the outskirts of it, because
Yeah,
whatever
but-
comes on the wetlands, the utility poles, those type of
Yeah,
things.
but those takes care of their jurisdiction, but what happens if there is a spillover of material coming out or anything else?
There are a lot of questions.
Immediate
Do we
EPA.
are we concerned about the public health here or not in that,
Yeah, oh,
that
yeah,
aspect?
Oh,
we'll
absolutely.
work in
So
part,
should-
we've always worked in partnership with the EPA, but they make the final word. They have the final say.
So they have a final say, but do we chime in and see what's going on there to so
Well,
that at
and-
least we know?
Sure,
And
yeah.
we potentially think there is a situation
We can
where they need
always-
to be
Yes.
addressed before they go on? that
Just
we-
like with the irrigation wells for the RTD, the board always has a right to provide info. And DEP is the other group that I forget to mention. DEP oversees that site. Every 5 years, they do a complete study of it. So it is DEP, but EPA would be involved with the consent decree as it relates to what can happen up there. They set those up years ago, after the cap was finalized, and DEP was given them more or less the responsibility to oversee it. So I correct myself, you would go to DEP if there was an issue there. In turn, EPA and the Board of Health, everyone would be involved.
Yeah, because I do see that subject coming up to the Nyanza Committee on this Thursday, so just wanted to
But,
make sure that.
but what
I
can
was
be
gonna
used,
ask-
I don't know. If it was a spill, that's one thing. What can be used on that site is a
Yeah, I
different
understand-
question.
I understand that.
Yeah.
We need to take our caution to make sure that it
Sure.
doesn't hurt the people, so that's what we
No,
want
and
to make
that's,
sure.
and everyone will.
It's been a concern for over
yeah.
30 years, yeah.
Road access, there's a lot of questions there.
Doesn't hurt to
Are
be
you gonna be able
cautious.
to make Thursday?
I mentioned
vacation.
earlier
The
that I was on
Nyanza-
vacation, but I'll
Oh.
be spending
I'm
my,
sorry, I missed that.
my afternoon and evening in my Bermuda shorts with the board to go to these
That's a
meetings. And then
graphic.
I'm gonna
That's
head
a
right
graphic.
back to where I wanna go, and that's
Last time you were only on the phone, this time you should be on a Skype.
I'm gonna get a picture of that. I'm gonna get a picture of that.
But anyways, I will be there. I'll rearrange my
That
schedule.
Nyanza meeting, I think is gonna have some important,
Yeah, I plan to be there.
I saw the map.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to make sure, because we don't often, thankfully, have this much attendance late at night, that everybody got a chance to participate in citizen participation. Because I think it'd be a nice gesture if we asked anybody if they had anything more to discuss. 'Cause- oh, looks like we did.
Cheryl Buckus, 6 Lincoln Road. And I just want to say, this is my first official meeting attending. I've heard a lot of stuff on Facebook. I've actually watched some of it, not being able to watch it long because I've been so embarrassed by it. But if you could work like you have worked in the last 15 minutes over this problem, I don't think there'd be issues.
Mhm.
You just have to work together, but please take all the citizens, what we said tonight, take it to heart, think on it. If you don't think you can work together, please, by all means, step down so somebody else can step up. We all appreciate everything you do. You put it out there. It wasn't easy probably to get elected, and you're there now. We really appreciate it, but it needs to work as a board. And if it isn't, then something needs to change. But I applaud the fact that you came together in the last 15 minutes of this meeting to get something accomplished. That's all I have to say.
We do have a meeting posted for Thursday. Hope whoever can come, can come.
Yeah, I'm working.
Sorry.
I will be joining the Nyanza meeting late, as we
Late.
discussed. Yep.
Okay, so we'll be able to at least have some superficial kind of discussions before then.
Can I just ask, I mean, we agreed tonight that we were all gonna work together as a 5-member board. Why would this board then, especially after this young lady's poignant comment, now we're gonna have a superficial meeting? Like, why would we do that?
The question would be, when will we discuss these topics? So if we
July
don't-
11th.
That'll help me with my vacation day, but that's,
But then we'll come out of the Nyanza meeting, we'll come off the, celebrating, the 4th of July, and we'll meet back here July 11th, hopefully with some information from the Nyanza meeting, hopefully with an update about the stakeholder meeting and your rest of your agenda. I mean, I think it's simple.
Well, when I say superficial here, for someone to bring in some information about some things that we could possibly look at for adopting from other towns, it's similar to when we introduced pesticides. That took 6 months probably, by kind of introducing something. This is something please look at this material. We can't just do that in emails, but we could do it as a group and then share it in an email, which is.
Madam Chair, we set the national standard for tobacco regulations by meeting every other Tuesday. We can do that on porta potties, we can do that on a landfill, we can do that on tanks. We can do that because we come here, ready to put your working hat on, say what's important, because I've been saying it for 2 years. We're a policy board. Let's develop some policy. You can develop policy, work on it, bring it, share it. You distribute it as the chair. Nobody comments on it, but you edit it, you work on it. You direct the communication. We're not communicating via email, giving opinions. We're working on policy. and we come back and we do that. And we've done that, like I said, for 30 years we've done that here. On Nyanza, for God's sakes, on a Superfund site. The most important issue in front of the town. We've always done that.
Going back
It's,
to
it's,
85.
and Judy, you've been a member of the board for 2 years. You were part of the pesticides and the tobacco. Nothing's changed.
July 11th, July 25th. July 25th is taken, so July 11th is when you want to do everything else.
Well, if the board agrees to that, yeah.
I could work with that.
I actually think that that's throwing us into too tight a schedule, but I would do whatever the majority wants to do. I don't think that it
So you're looking at
harms
the 11th?
individuals.
Yeah,
Can we go 7 to 10, Madam Chair, maybe, if we
Yeah,
have to? You know, put an extra hour in, I don't mind.
Do you want to do that for the Columbus Avenue people, or the complaints that you want to do on July 11th? Is that what you want to address it?
What complaints are we
I
talking
just think that the agenda will be very, very packed for the 11th, and I think it'll be very difficult to get through with 3.
Do we have Columbus Avenue complaints?
I haven't had any. I only have what was put in a letter to the planning board when they were having their hearings. And that's all we have. We haven't had actual complaints come to our office outside of not related to the bus parking lot, but we have had calls related to Fenwall, Kitty Fenwall, and that we addressed back in late winter.
I've had phone calls
Oh.
that the complaints that were going back in February still are the concerns.
Well, can I make a
And-
suggestion? You, as the chair, can summarize those complaints and distribute them to the board so that we're prepared to talk about them, but as of right now, I mean, I'm not aware of what they are.
I think that there were 3 written reports. I'm sure there were, absolutely sure there were 2. Were there 3, though? The one was passed to us at one of our last meetings, probably about 3 weeks ago.
The one came from you as an email.
The one came in
April
May
4th or something?
18th. It was an April mailing, but we got it sometime in May. That is exactly what I mean, I could send those off, but that's exactly what they're still saying, that those are their concerns. It's a little difficult to completely evaluate at this time, just because the school bus thing is wound down.
Well, I don't think it's wound down because it's being
School's
appealed,
closed.
right?
Oh, and it's being,
also
but the
being
lot's
appealed.
closed right now
Right.
too, but, not closed, but it's shut
But the
down for
ZBA
the summer
decision's being appealed right now, so.
by the neighbors.
by the
And
neighbors.
that's where I would suggest to the board, and again, just suggest that legal counsel be advised on whatever you wish to discuss, because it is an appeal, we have to be extra careful. Not, as Amy said, she can't give an opinion and lobby for decisions at every turn. The board should consult with legal before you open up the potential for interfering with an appeal. You could be in legal territory there. I'll call it territory.
Mhm.
I would advise that legal counsel be advised first before doing anything related to that subject matter. The bus lot.
I will reach out.
But if there are complaints to you, I would ask that you share them with the entire board, so we're at least aware of them.
It's no different. It's just, when are you going to take up what we've brought to you is really the concern. It's just, when are you going to take them up? That's, keeps going. When is it gonna be on the agenda? When are we going?
That's more of a question to me than a complaint, yeah. We'll do it on the 11th, yeah.
One way to do it is to, one way to do it to bring the council, and then she can express that we can't do it.
That's what I'm suggesting, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so
You
you
want
at
me
least,
to invite?
at least you put the
She-
topic on the
she
agenda, then
prefers
have the
to meet-
council to come and then advise
She
us.
prefers to meet on Wednesdays, I think, is what I was expressed, so.
Who's that?
Town council.
Town council, because they're on the books on Wednesdays.
Town council works for the town, so I mean, she'll come on a Tuesday. She works her office hours on Wednesdays here. But it's numerous times that town council's attended our Tuesday night meetings.
They just did?
Yeah, they just did.
Could
2
we
meetings
ask?
ago, she
Yeah.
was here.
Town council works in this building on Wednesdays, usually in the morning till the early afternoon.
Should
But
we-
that's the standard day to be in the building. They'll come on a Thursday night meeting, a Tuesday night meeting if we need them.
So is it the majority belief that we should start our meeting at 7 PM on Thursday instead of 6:30?
Yes.
No,
And not,
7?
not have a meeting and have it on July 11th.
Oh, yeah,
That's what
I'm
I
sorry.
say.
I thought you wanted to change the time.
No,
But if we're going to attend, who's attending the Nyanza? So not 3 people are gonna be there?
I'm going to be there.
I'm gonna be there.
I'm gonna be there because I'm on the committee. Your guys are going as residents.
Yeah, but, we don't want to be hit with an open meeting law violation, so.
It's a free-flowing time when we offer
You're free to attend as a
opinions.
resident. If the chair chooses to allow you to speak, then you're allowed to speak, but I will be there because I'm a member of the committee. If you 2 choose, or 3 or 4 of you choose, you'll choose to go as residents.
I would recommend
I would
posted
suggest
meetings
that
so we can offer opinions. It's a free-flowing
But I
meeting
guess
where
I'm getting
people.
lost. We went from having a 6:30 meeting to now you're saying to do it at 7, and I think most of us are saying, let's just do it on July 11th.
Well, that meeting subject is different, but here at least we are listening, and then if I express an opinion, or if she expresses, or you
Open
express an
meeting law
opinion,
violation.
that becomes a meeting for
If I can, are you saying the agenda items, not the Nyanza meeting, but the agenda items, move those to July 11th? Is that what's being asked?
That seems to be the majority.
I think that's what you brought up too,
I
Madam
would rather
Chair.
keep them on Thursday, but if the majority wishes to move them,
I think that
I'm
was what the
amenable.
intent, not the time, but the intent to take no, it's your vote, but is that what the intent was? I think everyone's saying the same thing. Except you, I know you're not in favor, Madam
Yeah,
Chair, but I think taking the agenda items to July 11th, not the
Yeah, if that's
meeting
the
with
majority,
Nyanza.
if everyone wants to
choice.
do that, I'm fine with doing that.
No, I'll make a motion that we have our next board meeting on July 11th and discuss those items and items to be determined
At
at that time.
7.
At 7 PM on July
I'll
11th.
second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. I'm going to express a concern with that because that then inhibits me from speaking on opinions. One person has to leave the room and then it becomes a very awkward situation. I believe that we should,
She's talking about the Nyanza.
if Nyanza's, people came up and said, Nyanza, you should be addressing Nyanza. We want to go. We want to be participants. And it is a type of meeting where they request people from.
Is that actually, if you're there not in a capacity as a board member, but there as a citizen, you can't speak your mind?
You never lose your right as a citizen. You never lose your right as a citizen.
I don't know the open
You
meeting
never
law
lose
like
your right
you
as a
do,
citizen.
But from when I read it, I believe you can go and comment
Absolutely.
as an individual
Right.
without being part of a board, just like people did up here,
Just
just
like
like the selectmen
You had a
did.
quorum of selectmen here tonight,
Right.
Exactly.
stating
So-
their personal opinions. They didn't post for this.
Right.
They didn't post for it.
Nyanza is under our purview, though.
No, it's not.
No,
It's
it's
under
not.
the purview of the Board of Selectmen.
Like safety,
It's
I'll
under
let
the Board of
KG speak.
Selectmen.
Let me go back, and I've read some of these determinations. Rush recently the Attorney Rush from the AG's office recently did even cite a site visit as a violation by the members of the
Concom,
planning board and zoning boards, where they ask questions, not even express opinions. They ask questions. That was cited as an open meeting law violation. And I have asked a question for them, but it's a site visit, it's a private visit. How can the public be allowed, and who's going to take the risk on the
Understand.
liabilities? That has not been answered yet from the AG's office. So
Doesn't hurt to post a
we
meeting.
don't want to be in a situation where they
Yeah,
cite
I
us
agree.
again.
Does it hurt?
And if I ask a question, if it comes to my mind,
If the chair allows you to ask a question, yeah.
If I
Chair
can-
has allowed in the past, and
Exactly.
I've kept my mouth shut for a while because we did not announce the meeting, and I've been very silent in that meeting.
But
And I think I've restricted myself too much.
But as we said tonight,
And
the EPA controls Nyanza. The land stewards of any piece of land other than private property in this town falls under the Board of Selectmen. The Nyanza Committee is a Board of Selectmen committee. Yes, I agree with you 1,000% that the public health issues are important and the Board of Health should be representative, but you had a quorum here tonight of selectmen who gave their personal opinion. They did not post for that meeting. Because you don't lose your right as a citizen, KG.
They don't set the laws. The laws are set by the state, and AG rules on it. I cannot take whether that's a violation or a not violation. I don't determine it because I do not have that capacity and the ability to do it. But what I have read shows that even a site visit by a board to a private entity has been cited as a violation.
If I can just add, I just learned something new on this too, KG, because I didn't know either. City council, I'm a city council member in Marlboro. And I was at a meeting about housing in Marlboro just 2 weeks ago. And there were 5 city councilors out of 11 in the room. When the 6th city council showed up, I was in shock. Our city council president stood up and interrupted the meeting and said, I'd like to make a note that I have to leave because now we have a quorum. I never knew about this before. I think the open meeting laws are changing. And he said, either one of us councilors has to leave because now we're in quorum. We didn't post a meeting, but once we became a quorum in a meeting, one of us had to leave, so he left.
I did
And
leave.
So that's another possibility if you guys want to do it, but now they've gotten pretty strict
Well,
about it.
well,
I agree with what you're
I,
saying.
I did leave in the beginning when John
no,
asked for one of us to leave, and out of respect to the committee members, I
Yeah.
did leave. But I don't want to forego my right to speak
No,
there
so
as
it's
a
one or the
citizen,
other,
so
yeah.
I
But you
do
don't,
want to
but
attend.
you
I've
don't.
already told the
Doesn't hurt.
town manager to find a solution for it, and he hasn't found it more than 2.5 months.
Doesn't
So-
hurt to post.
So I've done all my
It's too
best I
late to
could.
post them.
It is
And
already posted.
The best thing is to
Madam
announce
Chair,
a
what time
meeting
is
and
our meeting
then those who
posted
attend.
9:30.
Yeah. That's why,
So,
safe
we
than
should-
sorry, you might want to
maybe
post,
w-
but take the agenda items off.
And then you just
Change the-
officially
It's
call the meeting to
probably
order
too- It's
Too late.
at 7
probably
o'clock.
too late to change the agenda, 48
be.
hours.
Yeah.
So we could just agree to
You can cancel a meeting.
skip that portion and start the meeting at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, in fact, you don't even have to start it, Madam Chair, until you see 3 members in the
Yep.
audience.
Yeah.
If there's only 2 of you, you don't have to start it until you have 3.
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn
Adjourn.
since we're a little bit
Adj-
past.
Did we agree on July 11th? Because there was a motion and a second, but we didn't take a vote.
Oh, I didn't know there was a motion, sorry.
The next meeting, so what happens to 29th if we meet?
For Nyan.
I think that's what we just discussed
So
the
we'll-
last 5
The
No, no, we will
We're-
we'll meet on the 11th, that is not an
The
issue.
11th and the 25th.
But that should not be the case of a next meeting, that's if it means that that's the only meeting that will happen, so we just want to make sure that if you meet on 29th, because of this open meeting law issue in the Nyan, that we have the safety
We
built in.
keep on
The
talking like the
29th
29th is like days away.
July.
It's Thursday.
The
Right.
29th is going to stay posted as is.
Okay, that's fine.
If no one shows
No, that wasn't the
till
motion. That was not the
Right,
motion.
right, I understand that, but there was part of the conversation here, because there appears to be an interest to keep it, and there's no reason to pull it down at this point. If we want to err on the side, if you want to make a separate motion after we're done considering the 11th motion, let's do that. Otherwise, I'd just leave it. So, the 11th motion is on the table, where we have, I guess there's a motion, could you
Yeah,
repeat it, please?
If the motion is next meeting on the 11th, then it'll be a problem. I don't mind having a meeting on the 11th, but if it says the next meeting, that there's no meeting between now and the 11th.
Oh, in
So
other
that is
words,
what I
the
wanted to make
words-
clarification.
The words of the motion.
That's right.
Is what you'd like to have
11th July
clarified.
we'll have a meeting, that's fine with me, I have no problem with it.
Maybe
So-
motion.
We're not gonna meet as 5 then.
So if someone could
Right.
repeat the motion on the 11th, we will hold a meeting on the 11th and move the agenda items as much as possible to
My
that.
original motion is that we will meet, and I want to be perfectly clear, we will meet on July 11th and July 25th in the month of July. July 11th will be our next board meeting.
And so
That's what
everybody-
And that was seconded.
Then be-
Second.
Discussion
I-
is, I would like to keep it flexible so
7
we can
p.m.
have other meetings in July if needed, as we determine. That limits us to only 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Nyanza committee has other meetings that we may have to attend it, then it'll be a problem, so let's not restrict ourselves. We will take the 11th and the 25th as a meeting.
So if
Date.
that vote went
That
down, I would
We
then.
should not shut down meeting in other dates.
If that vote goes down, then I would resubmit it as, let's meet on the 11th and the 25th, leaving other options open as the board so determines.
Well, as emergency situations arise, but also keep in mind that historically, and I know we can change things that we've done historically in July and August, we always do a summer schedule as well, too. So,
I know, John, there are things have been done for 30 years in different fashions, but things do change.
I
Things
agree-
do improve.
I just said
And
that,
then
yep.
for progress and having better things, let's move on with better organizations. It doesn't hurt to have more meetings.
It does not.
Okay.
But as long as the board knows what the agendas are gonna be in advance, so you can prepare for them, and as we do other things, I just don't understand why we're bouncing schedules and we're trying to, you know, are you available this date? Well, maybe I am, because what are we talking about? Or, you know, what's the priority? I mean, I think that's mutual respect to
That
staff-
should be
staff
top
and
of
a
our
five-member
agenda
board.
to discuss.
I'm trying to respect your proposal. If you say the next meeting is 11 July, and then
That's my
if we
proposal.
meet before that, then we will not be respecting your proposal.
Well, if there's
That
an,
is what I'm
if there's an
asking.
emergency between now and then, but let's knock on wood that there's not an emergency.
Let's,
But I mean, not with some of the things that are on the agenda are not an emergency. They can be handled in a regular meeting.
That's my point.
I
Right.
believe that we really
So
should be moving along
I'm hearing
public
Mr.
health.
Mitchell in my head again. We all know what we're talking about. We all have a motion and a second. Can we call a vote?
Can I just
Yes.
ask one, just
Add
because
some
I'm not.
clarity. Sure.
Is the reason to have other meetings, but potentially without an agenda, just to be able to go to potentially a Nyanza meeting and not be an open meeting law violation? So then put that in the motion to say, we're not gonna speak
No,
about
there's
agenda
more.
items unless a majority of the board members are there, and that we don't have to worry about violating an open meeting law to go to these other meetings. Just put that in there. But we're not gonna, unless we're all together, we shouldn't discuss, A, B, C, D, and E unless there's more of an emergency. I think that's what John is saying. And for us to move forward as a board, like we all said we were gonna do tonight, we gotta do it together. We can't have factions. And if it's important enough for us all to meet, then we can talk about it, and maybe people will change their minds and we can meet. But we gotta do it together. We can't continue to try to fracture the board.
Yes,
Agree.
so the motion is to only have those two meetings, which means we
Right,
would
but
have to, we would
believe-
have to get,
But I believe it was
Which
on
I
the
think it's- I
that-
think it's
that
too-
the
I think it's too
agenda
limiting.
items would be moved, and that you would then be free. We could post that meeting for the 29th on Thursday and not have just
That's
call it
correct.
so that we're not in violation, but not specifically sit down and talk about board stuff. That's what I understood it to mean.
Exactly.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, that's, you're interpreting my motion 100%.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's, okay.
Yeah.
Friendly amendment, and now we can remake the motion and.
Let's vote. So why don't you
Okay.
make it?
Right. Well, I can't even say it like I just did. Does everybody understand what I just said? Is that was my
If I
take?
heard
That was what I
routine.
took out of that.
For the 2 routine meetings in July is how I heard it, that your
Yes.
2 routine meetings in
2
July will be
routine
July
meetings.
11th and July 25th.
Yes.
If there is other needs for emergency meetings, I'll let the board know.
not emergency, but other reasons because
Or
of-
other reasons
other
such
reasons
as.
such as,
well, as-
so the
as-
attending joint meetings, that's
as-
what I
As
meant.
Ron just said,
Yeah,
just said.
Okay.
You should know
for
those in
other, for other
advance.
reasons such as attending joint meetings.
Right. Do I have the permission to make that motion, John?
Of course you do.
Okay.
Of course you do.
Because I don't want to overrule your motion without your
Well,
permission.
we already had a motion and a second. Should we take a vote on the one that's existing, which means limits us without any flexibility?
Well, we could amend it.
Doesn't limit you, Judy.
I
It
understand.
gives you
but-
2 meetings
Posted
for the
meetings.
full board that are for Mark to get whatever information to us. If the 3 of you or the 4 of you decide to go to the meeting for Nyanza, as long as you're not discussing Board of Health business, it's not an open meeting law problem.
We
I
will
don't
be.
underst- No, you will be discussing it
It's
with
that
them,
simple.
not amongst
It's
yourselves.
essentially that simple.
Well,
It's not your board meeting, you're attending.
Exactly.
I'm
That
going
is the
to-
best
I'm-
point
I'm-
made, yes.
I'm
It's-
going to
it's-
leave the
it's-
meeting posted because I am concerned that it is an open meeting law violation.
I
If
don't
we-
want to
if
put
we
this town at
attend-
risk.
If we attend.
I understand.
I would
We're-
be happy to get an opinion from the attorney.
But we all
if
took an
that's
oath
what
tonight that
you
we were
believe.
gonna focus on public health. What we're doing here now
Is
is
gonna
not
make that-
focusing on public health. So we've already violated our oath tonight, so.
Well, public health is Nyanza, so, and you don't agree with that.
It's not just
You,
one,
you
it's a
don't
hotel.
agree with that, but
Judy,
Your pledge was only paper, wasn't it?
Judy, I do agree with Nyanza's public health. I do. So
okay,
don't, please.
So then it's public health, so we're
Judy,
gonna make. a
come
meeting.
to the meeting. It's on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. You're a citizen. If the chair allows you to participate, you'll be allowed to participate. It's that simple. The Board of Selectmen came to our
You
meeting
mean,
tonight. They
you mean
participated.
you expect them to not to allow the citizens' participation in that? And then
I'm not the chair of that,
I understand,
of
but,
that, board.
you
I'm
know,
a member
you-
of the board.
I understand, so you should,
My
you
standards do
should
not
probably
deviate.
stand up for the citizens on there too.
I will
And I
consult
always
with
do,
I'll
KG.
consult with the town attorney to get clarification
There you go, that's a
on
good
the
idea.
posting of Thursday's
That's a good
meeting or
idea.
not.
Folks, you've got a motion on the table.
Yep.
And you have two choices. John can rescind his motion, someone can restate the motion in a way that works for the
Yep.
board, and you can vote on it. Or you can
Perfect.
simply vote on John's motion and be done with it and press forward.
Thank you.
John, would you consider rescinding your motion so it can be restated? Please.
No, because it's my core conviction that that's what we should be doing. We should be meeting on July 11th, July 25th as a full board. Nothing on Thursday night's agenda is an emergency situation. And I hope to see everybody at this table at the Nyanza meeting on Thursday. But no, this next board meeting with all of us, all 5 members and staff will be July 11th at 7 PM.
So you will not allow, if the attorney says that for us to participate on Thursday, it can't, you're not allowing that in your
It's
motion.
not that I'm allowing it, it's my motion. It's my motion that has been
Right,
seconded
okay.
by another board member, actually thirded, or by another board member. If my motion fails, then we move on. But let's take a vote on it, and
So
then we'll move on.
whoever, just to clarify, whoever goes to that meeting on Thursday, if the attorney says we cannot all be there, then we cannot all be there.
Then you stay home.
Then you
Yeah.
stay home, and we cannot, as members of the Board of Health, participate in the Nyanza discussion.
Judy, you could ask a member to
We're doing
politely
board
leave
business.
for when
Nyanza is Board of
another
Health
discusses.
No, it's not.
It's not an
It's
open meeting.
not.
I don't understand what board business, if you're asking questions as a concerned citizen, you don't give up your right, just like Joe Magnani didn't,
Absolutely.
and just like Steve Mitchell didn't. They spoke today, they gave their opinions, they said, get your act together, and Carl Hackinson was here too. So is that an open meeting law violation?
The Board of Health is not under their purview.
Right. Nyanza's a Superfund site, and we're not making direct decisions about that in that specific meeting. You can give your opinions as a person without me voting on it. Isn't that right?
I disagree with you on the
Okay.
open meeting, and so does KG. KG and I disagrees with your
It's-
interpretation of the open.
But can I just make
Right,
one point
right,
of reference?
bef-
Earlier this year, when
So
we had the
let's
problem.
take a vote
We
on
had the
John's.
Ashland Citizens Committee, right? And so when I was the chair, I reached out to DEP and EPA and asked them to put their things in writing. And you guys understand why I did that? Because as much as we care and we are concerned, it's not our call. Nyanza is not our call. It's in our town, it's in our backyard, and we are the Board of Health. But at the end of the day, the good working relationship that Mark has fostered over 30 years with the EPA and DEP gives us that seat at the table. But if they wanted tomorrow, and let's hope that they don't, wake up and say, you don't have a seat at the table anymore, there ain't nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, let me.
And this type of stuff is the type of stuff that they're very conscious about. And as you guys are aware, because I sent you emails when I was the chair, they are concerned about this type of stuff.
John.
Let's put
just-
Nyanza on a next meeting and
just-
discuss our role in it.
Just before that, you said that they all came up and spoke, the selectmen here.
They said
As if,
Nyanza's
as
for
if,
us.
as if they speaking is a gospel for us, that we've taken it here, and they did not violate the law. I don't know how to make a judgment on their call about whether they did violate or not violate. They also, one of them also said that Nyanza is the one that we need to address it.
Okay.
So if that is the
Gentlemen,
case,
I'm
if
not
that is the
denying that.
case, then that becomes a part of
We
subject
need to
that
be
we are
addressing
discussing.
Nyanza.
If
It's
that
our
is,
business.
that is not
Then
our,
let's put it on the
if
July
that,
11th agenda.
I
and we'll
understand,
address
but
it. And wouldn't it make sense coming out of the Nyanza meeting on Thursday night? Ideally, you'd like to discuss it on the 4th, but hey, Independence Day is more important. So, we'll come out of that meeting with the information. I can report back to the board, or I can ask the chair to,
Not the same
why
thing.
don't you invite the
I-
chair on July 11th to come and give an update to the
Not-
board?
John,
It's not
John.
the same thing.
No,
John.
it is, you're absolutely right. It's not
my-
the same
my-
thing, but
my-
it's the process.
my flow of questions does not depend on your presentation. My flow of questions depends on what discussed in the Nyanza committee meeting.
Then
So
why
I
don't we
need,
invite
I
the
need,
Nyanza committee meeting to come to a Board of Health meeting? Maybe do it on July 11th.
Same thing.
I'm sorry,
You're right, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's the best we can do.
No, we can have a meeting. We can post it. Okay, so there was,
Yes?
I agree. I agree, we're having discussion, it's fine. So John made a motion, it's, John made
Chair, you
a
have to
motion,
make a
it's
call.
been seconded. All in favor of John's motion that we have no, if I can paraphrase, no meetings between now and the 11th?
I did not say that. I
Unless
did not
they're
say that.
emergency.
I did not say that. I said we would meet as a
Please
member,
restate it.
a 5-member board and with staff on July 11th and July 25th.
Oh, that's fine. Then we can still meet, on Thursday.
No.
No,
The last time that you used was the next meeting, that's what you made. That is the one that.
Didn't have the next meeting
yeah.
words in there.
If
So
you change this
My
wording,
motion-
I have no
I
problem.
like the motion, John. It's been seconded.
No, come on, Judy, you're playing semantics now. Come on, you're not being fair.
Well, then
Everybody in the
re-
room knows
then
what my
repeat
motion
it,
is.
Then repeat it, please.
There's somebody out there can repeat it for you, John.
2 weeks. 2 separate days. Please vote.
The next
Please
scheduled
repeat
meeting
your,
for the
please
Board of
repeat your,
Health,
your motion,
the
John.
11th and the 24th.
Please repeat your motion, John.
Period.
Next scheduled meeting.
Because we're about to take a vote, please repeat your motion.
Well, then take it before we all get old.
I'm counting to 10. The motion has been seconded. You're the chair. You're responsible for calling the vote.
I'm responsible for repeating the motion before I call the vote, so please help me by repeating your motion.
Are we recording?
Not clear to me.
Yeah, can
I
we?
don't know if it's clear to everyone else at this table.
Yes or no for the 11th, that's all it is.
The 11th and the 25th.
In the spirit of keeping with the mantra that we should be doing public health and nothing more, my motion for the numerous time is that this board meet in its entirety, the 5 plus the 2 staff members. Our next meeting be July 11th, 7 p.m., followed by a meeting on July 25th at 7 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Aye.
Let me make a motion that we'd like to post a meeting for 29th of June, which you already done, so sustain that as it is.
I second that motion.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said we'll keep the meeting on the 29th of June announced so far because we don't want to violate the open meeting law.
Yes.
I second that motion.
Okay.
Any discussion?
I would ask that the chair call a vote.
No discussion?
I've asked for a vote.
Okay, all in favor of KG's motion that the 29th meeting be kept as a meeting as posted?
Aye.
Is it as posted or modified with no agenda items other than the night?
Well, that, we could modify that if you want to.
Okay, please modify your vote,
So-
your motion.
Yeah, we modify the agenda items and then keep the meeting date.
To only have the Nyanza meeting as an agenda
Yes,
item.
yes.
I second that motion. No discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote for that, as long as those meeting agenda minutes are moved.
All against?
I am opposed.
2. Okay. Let's adjourn. Is there a motion
Yeah,
to adjourn?
motion to adjourn, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Hold up your 10 minutes. You're not, you're on.